When I was 12 or 13 years old, I bought an Apex DVD player. And just under the cardboard flaps, when you open the box, there was a 4x6 card. And that card was for a 1 month free trial of a new home video rental service called Netflix. And this was a pivotal moment for me. So if you've ever spent any time around me, you've had to suffer through listening to me talk about movies, my love of movies, how important they are to me. And so this subscription allowed me to go from seeing just the movies that were for sale at Walmart or happened to be on TV to almost every movie imaginable. So almost instantly, I started seeking out movies from other countries. I got really into films from Japan and Korea. This was a little before the new French extremity movement, but kind of moving into that. So I started watching a lot of French films. And not only did I like the way that they challenged the form of narrative and plot structure in the way that we get things here in America, but it also opened me up to seeing very different perspectives from what I was seeing with the types of films that I was engaging with that were readily available here in the States without a subscription service like Netflix. So I immediately dove in and was watching pretty much anything I could get my hands on. It didn't really matter. I just really enjoyed getting those different perspectives, those challenging viewpoints, and changing the way I thought about movies based on the way things were being done in other countries. Now, you might be asking, what the hell does this have to do with anything? And for me, the through line here is that goal of wanting to challenge my perception and to see other perspectives is something that I have very much carried on from that time when I was 12 or 13 and started seeking out those movies to now as an adult. And as my worldview grows and grows based on the connections I'm building with people with vastly different lives than I have had, with vastly different experiences and different perspectives, I want to have more conversations around those. Because for me, growing up as a straight white male, I had a very specific worldview and a very specific experience within that worldview. So I want to have conversations that show me what it is like to be someone else. I want to be able to shine a spotlight on other people's experiences. And even in this episode, we get into it. And Miriam, my guest, we actually met on a Daily Zeitgeist Discord server. We were talking about work. She had mentioned that she is in the tech space. And so for me, it made sense to bring her on. And very early on in this conversation on the episode, I talk about how I don't hear that much about the perspective of women of color in the tech space. And this kind of catches her off guard because for her, and it being the world that she's in, especially being based in San Francisco, it is a very normal conversation for her. But for me, literally being on the other side of the country, I've worked in tech, but I'm not currently in it. These are conversations that I'm not hearing, that aren't making their way to me as someone who has an interest in the space. So I loved having her on, getting to talk to her about her experience, her point of view, where she thinks the industry is now and where it's going, and what her experience has been like the last few years, as there has been this shift in focus. With some companies, it is real, and with some, it is just for the optics of saying, yeah, we have DEI or we have employee resource groups, but it doesn't actually mean anything. And so just getting her perspective, getting to talk to her about it, absolutely a pleasure. I'm so thankful that she came on, and I'm thankful for you for checking it out. So this is my conversation with Miriam. I'm Zach Van Nuss, and this is Grinding to a Halt. But it's been fun. Like I was telling Jack when I talked to him, I was like, it's weird that like the group of people that show attracts are like the nicest people I've ever met. Like everybody is so encouraging and so supportive, and it speaks volumes of the show itself.
Hmm.
Like the type of energy they're putting out, that's who it's attracting. Because every subculture has some assholes in it, but
Well,
they
and
they
it seems to police itself extremely
Mhm.
well. Like since I've
Yeah.
joined the Discord, I've only seen like two people get booted, and that was like it's
Mhm.
been like what 4 years or something.
That's crazy. Because any other Discord I'm in, I'm only in a couple. Like people are getting booted constantly, even when it's people who are from the outside. You'd be like, oh, they have a lot in common, or like politically, these people probably all align. But there's always people getting out of hand that get booted.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it is very, but I find that most of my discords are pretty private. So I do find that in
Mhm.
general, Discord in general seems to engender better communities than like, Twitter or Reddit or whatever, right?
Yeah. I like it. At first I was hesitant because I was like, it's just one more thing like to check. And I don't want one more thing to check. Um,
Right.
but I'm like, no, because it is super niche and people aren't finding it by accident. It's not like Twitter where some dude randomly finds you and then he's a piece of shit to you. Um, it doesn't really happen because you're all there for a similar purpose in the onset. So it helps to build community quicker. And then because it is a community focused on one thing, like you said, if there is somebody, which is rare, they get booted pretty quickly because nobody
Yeah,
wants to taint the waters.
yeah, for sure.
Thanks for reaching out. The show initially started with the idea of like, well, I want to talk about one specific topic, which is like balancing work and life
Hmm.
and, possibly finding some creative pursuits and the little bit of free time we have in that. But it's quickly evolving into more things that are topical that I find interesting or places that I have no real insight into. And so
Mm,
you're a perfect example of that, of
right.
being, a woman in tech. That is an experience that from the outside I've heard friends talk about it and
Right.
about that struggle because it is obviously male dominated. It is heavily white male dominated on top of that. So there's so
Right.
much prejudice and bias that goes into it. So even people trying to get their foot in the door, if you don't look like me and sound like me, it's difficult. So
Yeah,
your
yeah.
your perspective on that to me is very interesting because it's not something that I personally have an experience with. It's also not something I hear spoken about that much.
Oh, that's interesting. That might be a location thing.
Hmm.
Because being I'm in San Francisco, specific
Yeah.
like the city itself, so like it is something that I think does get talked about in the circles of those people, right? So
Yeah.
like there are like women in tech conferences and like
Yeah.
ERGs and that kind of stuff, and that is being talked about to a certain degree. Like a certain amount of discourse on like LinkedIn if you are into that, which
Hmm.
we can get to that. But do you? Sorry, just for my knowledge, do you have a background in tech or have you worked in tech?
Yeah. So I worked at a tech startup. We were real estate specific. So we had built a proprietary CRM. We ran their marketing and their website, but the
Mhm.
power of our tool was essentially Salesforce for real estate agents.
Okay.
So that was, I came in right after a buyout. So I was there at like a very strange time when it was
Mhm.
going from like, yeah, this one time the CEO came into the office riding a horse because he thought it would be funny of like the just weird stuff that happens at a startup to,
Yeah,
and now
yeah,
we're shifting from Google Suite to Microsoft because parent company wants everything in Microsoft. So
yeah.
like I was there at a strange time.
No, I've been through a lot of those transitions in my career.
Mhm.
Weirdly, I seem to have weird luck with that, or I like right before we IPO or something,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
but also I kind of have the mouth of a sailor. I need to know if I can swear or not.
Oh, you can say whatever you
Okay,
want. I
because like you never know. Um, but no, I mean it's interesting that you bring up even like the riding a horse because I thought it was cool thing, right? Like there is this kind of like bros being bros mentality that's really interesting and like
Mhm.
is in itself like almost a little bit juvenile, which like you know
Yeah.
I like to refer to it as Willy Wonka bullshit because
I
it
love
is
that.
like I started in nonprofits in my career. And so
Mhm.
transitioning from nonprofits and like really caring about the
Yeah.
nickels and the dimes and like really juicing like as much as you can out of everything because you need that overhead to be so low because you're
Yeah.
working off of grants, because you're working off of donations that all have these kind of parameters around we expect you to put all of your effort and all of your money towards the cause that you are supposed to be
Yeah.
helping and we don't agree that you deserve anything else, because
Mhm.
otherwise then it's not true charity, right?
Yep.
And then you transition from that to something like tech, where they are spending money for no reason on things that are literally crazy, right? Like
Yeah.
a guy walking in on a horse, right? Like, or whatever. Like, I worked places that had, full bars, just uh, White Claw on tap for whom
Yep.
okay, things like that. I appreciate some of the perks, but at the same time, I don't want them. I want the money. I want you to pay me.
Same.
I want
Same.
healthcare. I want money. I want my time back. I don't want forced fun. I don't want to go to your happy hour. I don't need to make friends here. This isn't
Hmm.
college for
Yeah.
me, right? And so it's that whole ecosystem does not lend itself very well to people who are different or considered different, right? So like
Yeah.
it is, you learn very quickly that you need to assimilate, right?
Yep.
You have to try to figure out who you're going to eat lunch with in the cafeteria, like you're in middle school again, right?
Hmm.
And it can
Oh,
be
absolutely.
triggering for people. I've seen people really have a hard time with it, and love the shift from working from home, because you aren't constantly like trying to make sure people like you in that way, as opposed to just
Yeah.
being really good at your job,
Yeah.
right?
No, I feel all of that. So for me, I've worked at so many companies where they try to offset the things that they know are broken by giving you those perks. So,
Right.
I've worked at companies where, beer on tap or every Friday food is delivered. They always do catering, things like that. And I'm like, no, that's a band-aid on a gunshot wound. Like there's so many other problems happening at this company and I don't even drink. So like you trying to give me
So
beer,
now we can also.
that's to me, I just see, oh, that's wasted money. My health insurance could be cheaper if we weren't buying so much beer.
Well, and also like if you don't drink too, right, and you're in these scenarios, you're also oftentimes forced to like sit there and like watch people be like weirdly drunk at work.
Yeah.
Like, and I do drink. I love drinking, like whatever. But
Yeah.
like I was just talking to a friend who's at an offsite right now for like a large tech company, and she works in HR, and
Hmm.
she texted me and was like, one of the people in our leadership just had to be escorted out of the event because they are so blackout drunk that they like fell over a karaoke rig and then were like inappropriately dancing on some like younger employees, right? And this is
Yeah.
someone in their 50s. This is a man in their 50s, right?
Hmm.
And it's like that's not an isolated incident either.
That's the norm.
Right. So it's like, I mean, I luckily haven't worked anywhere that crazy. Like I've
Hmm.
seen like some shit, but like nothing like that. But like the
Yeah.
stories that some of my other friends tell me, I'm just like, what do you mean? Like,
Hmm.
right. But it is this weird thing where it's like everyone treats it like it's not just your job.
Yeah.
Right. And so it becomes this really weird social scenario that like if you don't care for it,
Hmm.
it can damage your career. Right.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of that verbiage around like family and team where they start to really focus on those things
Right.
to offset of like, no, we're all working towards the same goal. And yeah, I agree. We are, as a company, we should all be moving the same direction. We should all be working towards the same goal. But at the end of the day, you are not my family, and this isn't a team. You're paying me to be here.
Right.
Like you're buying my time. That's what I tell everybody. I'm like, the things I do it for my day job is just in exchange for my time. Like I'm filling my time with those tasks. What you're paying for is my time. My time is
Right.
valuable. Like that's it. Because every
Right.
minute
I give you
I'm
labor and time, you give me healthcare and money. Goodbye. Right.
absolutely. And I think those especially startups and then tech specifically because it's kind of viewed as like this. I think your Willy Wonka example is pretty apt of this wonderland of like, oh, this magical thing where these things that never existed before are happening. So if it's a little abusive, that's okay because magic is happening. Or like if maybe we let, CEOs get away with a little more than they should. It's okay because look at what they're giving us in exchange. I've been listening to the Behind the Bastards episodes on Steve Jobs
Mm-hmm.
over the last couple days. And obviously everybody knew he was a terrible person. Like
Yeah.
that wasn't a secret, but like the depths of awful that he was to people and all the backstabbing and stealing money from Steve Wozniak of like not even telling him they were getting bonuses for stuff. And then Steve finds out when a book gets released and like all these things he was doing, but then we write it off of like, but but the iPhone, like it's
But
okay, it's
we
justifiable.
right, we reward it, right? Like
Hmm.
so I like in tech, I'm a program manager, right? It's literally my
Yeah.
job to get you guys to do your job
Hmm.
with as little complication as humanly possible. It's hurting
Yeah.
cats, right? Like that's
Hmm.
what it is. And one of the things I had to like, really learn how to do is to manage this part of tech. The
Yeah.
idea that we are making magic, we are better than everybody else, we are smarter than everybody else, specifically engineers, by the way, who are not only
Yeah.
like that with each other, they're like that with everybody else in a way that it can be so hard to just get something done.
Yeah.
Because it's like, as soon as you're considered non-technical, you're now a second class citizen. You're arguing about something where you're like, I don't care if there is a better way to do it. The issue right now is you don't have the time or
Hmm.
we don't have the structure, right? Like
Yeah.
there are times where like, and this happens, I'm sure you've noticed this at startups where your main concern as a startup is to get a minimum viable product, right? You are
Yep.
trying to go to market. And because of that, you may not set up your platform to scale. You may not set it up in a
Hmm.
way that's like easy to work with, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to use another one of my metaphors. This may not make sense because it is location specific, but I oftentimes see this hit right around the time that you're graduating from startup to like a real corporation,
Hmm.
you know, when you're maturing where your platform is being held together with hope and bubblegum and it becomes the Winchester Mystery House. You have stairways that don't go anywhere. You have, rooms that are haunted. Like you got, and so
Yeah.
oftentimes that will hinder your ability to move quickly as you expand, right?
Hmm.
And then you will have these issues where you have people either in leadership or in engineering who can't work under that parameter without getting pissed. And it's like,
Yeah.
I know that, you know that, this is the reality now.
Hmm.
We have to disagree and commit and come up with a solution because this is our job. And I'm not going to sit here and spend 2 hours arguing with you about this because I literally don't care.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't care. This is what we're being told to do. It's a job. We're doing it. If you
Hmm.
can come up with a solution that hits all the parameters of this, yeah, okay, we could do it that way too. I don't care. Like, but you end up with this thing of it's an entitlement of being able to treat people a certain way, or you don't understand my
Yeah.
job, or your job doesn't matter, or why do I have to do this? And it's like, you don't. You don't have to be here.
Yeah.
I don't, what do you want me to say? Like, yes, you're right. I'm an idiot. You're a genius. I don't care. Like, I literally don't want to do this with you,
Yeah.
But you find yourself in these conversations or in this issue over and over again. Like
Hmm.
the last company I worked for was in shambles when I got there. Like just not in terms of like, well, they weren't profitable, but on the surface looked great, right?
Yeah.
Online store looked great, Instagram great, TikTok great, fine. Background, they didn't write anything down.
Oh my God.
Like like they didn't write anything down, and they
Which,
said,
as a program manager, is your nightmare. That is like a cold sweat situation.
Okay, so they didn't have any program managers, right? They set up the department with me and my manager, my director, and like a
Hmm.
couple other of us being like, we need help, right?
Yeah.
Please come work for us. You can start from scratch. You can, set up processes exactly how you want, like based on your experience. We believe that you probably can guide us, right? Sounds
Yeah.
great. Sounds great. Had a great team. My director was perfect. I loved him. When we got there, we were told they don't have a ticketing system at all. They don't write anything down. Um, Everything is top down, but they use a weird system that nobody else in the history of the world has ever used. That doesn't make sense. I mean, it just isn't anything. And
Hmm.
then they don't use email.
Is it just all Slack based? Was that their model? Everything Slack?
Yep. So you don't know who made decisions.
Hmm.
You don't know who's working on anything. You don't know when they're supposed to deliver said thing. You don't know why they're doing it, right? And so I like had to come in there and I was talking to their head of engineering and I was like, you need something like a Jira or like worked like any a son something. I don't a
Hmm.
spreadsheet. I don't care.
Yeah.
Right. And they were like, oh, totally, like da 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 da, this and that. So, we went back and forth and obviously cost is an issue,
Hmm.
but they took the advice of engineers who didn't want to do this in the first place because if you never had to write down what you were doing, you're not going to want to do it now,
Of course.
right? Because that's oversight. You're getting away
Yeah.
with murder. And so they like instead of using like a very common program that like people would be very normal, would not understand, they picked this weird one that's supposed to be like by engineers for engineers.
Mm-hmm.
You can't report. There's no road mapping. You can't link tickets. You can't cross teams. You can't. And I was like, why would we? Okay, so this is unusable.
Yeah, it's
So
essentially a post-it note on someone's desk.
I don't even, and no one's ever heard of this thing. I mean, like, it was just this totally not industry standard. And, my team sitting there going, actually, here's like the top 5 we would recommend. Here's like some
Mhm.
cost benefit analysis. Like, yes, you will have to spend money. And they were just
Yeah.
like, no, we got this. And I was like, I mean, you don't got it. I mean, you hired 5 people. Okay. And, so then they like wouldn't allow us to implement it,
Hmm.
because oh, it's fine. And, so I'm in like my team meetings with, a couple engineering managers going like, hey, y'all, like, I'm not seeing anything on your dashboards. Like, what's the deal? And they were like,
Yeah.
oh, we don't want to do that. Okay, well, okay. You know, it was like you're trying to micromanage us. And I was like, I am once again not doing anything.
Yeah.
The head of engineering is asking you to do this. And they're like, well, we don't believe that he said that. You don't you don't believe that he said it in your engineering channel as a pinned post that I can screen share with you? You don't believe what he said? No, we need you to go ask him again. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Right? Because again, it was this idea of like this lesser than mentality, not
Yep.
understanding my role, not caring to understand my role, and very clearly being, you're a secretary. And I'm like, I'm not your secretary. I don't need to
Yeah.
go run interference and confirm stuff with this person as if like I'm your assistant. You don't need that from me. And I don't need that from you. And also, like, who do you think you are? Like, we
Yeah.
don't talk to people like this. So I was like, oh, okay, well, you do you,
Hmm.
and we'll see how that goes. 2 months later, I get, the head of engineering being like, how come no one's using my system? Well, you didn't roll it out and you didn't tell them anything.
Yeah.
Well, no, I did. I put it in Slack. Oh, okay. So did you set up a training? Did you give a dateline, like a deadline for when they have to get their work in there? Are you asking people to like actually like do updates or anything at all? And he was like, well, it's implied. I was like, oh, okay. So, it just, it is a really weird place to work because it is a lot of pushback around doing the job they got paid for, or they
Yeah.
are getting paid for, and a lot of money, I might say.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah. No, that's at outside of the perks that people don't really care about that much. Engineers are where tech companies spend their money.
yeah,
They pay a lot of money to poach really good talent from other companies to come build whatever it is they're trying to build. And when they come in and there's no sort of project management happening, I mean, we both know it's hard enough to change systems anyway. If
yeah,
you are trying to change email providers, it's a 6 month long process and
right,
everybody's fucking miserable the
right,
whole time. Everyone hates it. So to go from zero process to not only is there now going to be process, but these are the people that are in charge of said process and they're going to make sure you're doing your shit. There's always going to be pushback to that. So if
right,
top down management isn't backing you up at every step, you're being set up to fail
100%.
because you're the bad guy every time you walk in the room. So like for me as an account manager, the way I have to think about my job is that I don't do any of the actual work. My job is not to do the work. My job is to make sure internal teams are and that it is developed and presented to a client in a way that they can understand.
Right,
And that's it. That's my job is just to make sure the client is happy and they understand what we're doing, what they're paying us for. But the actual work doesn't happen by my hand ever. I write emails and I talk. That's the whole
right.
job. So I have to be very mindful of the way I communicate with coworkers.
Hmm.
Is this just Zach asking for more shit? Every time Zach slacks me or every time Zach sends an email, I know he's going to ask me to do something. So I have to be very mindful of like the way I parse out communications of like, hey, I have to make sure that I'm talking to them about their life or I'm investing in them as people or we're having conversations that aren't just asks because when you become the ask guy, no one fucking likes you. And
No,
for you as a program manager, you are the ask person because your whole job is, hey, this is over deadline. Where are we? I need an update
right.
yesterday.
It's not, especially with program too, like it's a little less project management, which is why I like it because I don't like project management. I hate
Mm.
project management. I'm gonna be totally honest about it. It sucks. I
I'm
feel like I'm nagging people all the time.
Yeah.
you
Because
know,
you are. That's
because
that job. That
that,
job
that is
is.
what you're doing, right? But at least with program, it's a little bit more about like, how do we get work done? And I think one
Mhm.
thing that you do need for that, and I think one thing that I've been able to cultivate, like getting used to it over time, and learning how tech is very different from other industries and other places that I have worked, and it just has a very different uh, socialization,
Mhm.
is being able to kind of play both sides, right? So it's like
Yeah.
when you're talking to your team who's actually doing the work, you're like, I get it, this sucks, but like, here's the thing, this is why we need to do it. Like,
Yeah.
here's the ask, this is why the ask is happening, needs to go to a board meeting, we need this because we need to be able to keep our head count. Like, I understand it feels like busy work. Unfortunately, that is just part of it. Like,
Yeah.
because it is, right? Like, there is so much pushback around this idea of we have too many meetings, there's too many emails, there's too many Slack. It is, there are. I agree with you.
Mhm.
It's completely inefficient, right? There are better ways for us to do this. We would have to invest in that change. People
Yeah.
do not want to take the time out of being productive for things that make them money.
Mhm.
So, until there's a consensus that, like, hey, we need a better system to manage this because it is inefficient and we're wasting time.
Yeah.
And we get buy-in from everybody else to like slow down for 6 months to like really implement that change. This is what it is. Part of your
Mhm.
job is going to be administrative, And I think there
Yeah.
is this idea that it shouldn't be, right? Like, I've had a lot of people tell me to my face, I don't get paid to write emails. I get paid to code. I don't get paid to go to meetings. I get paid to design. No, you
Mhm.
don't actually. You get paid to do all
Yeah.
this being paid for. Like, that is what this is. Like, yes, we have expensive meetings if there's too many people there, but like,
Mhm.
that's a communication issue, right? So
Yeah.
like, that's not a that's actually telling me something.
Mhm.
But you showing up and being salty, or showing up and not being prepared for the meeting, or not, or derailing it in some way, or just you're going to create a new meeting by
Mhm.
doing that, right? And so it's like,
Yeah.
but this idea of like, I don't get paid to X is an insane statement to me, because I've never felt empowered in a workplace outside of something actually egregiously being outside of my job
Yeah.
to turn to my boss or turn to my, VP, or even my teammate, because I respect them, and go, fuck you, I'm not doing that. I don't get paid to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Like,
am a notorious yes person at work because, not to circle back onto like the team thing, but I do want us all to work as a unit and I want us to accomplish our goal. So if someone's asking me for something and I know it's something I'm capable of, I will take it on even if I shouldn't. Because well, if it needs to get done and I can do it, I'll do it. I will work late, or I will work this weekend, or whatever I have to do to get this done. Um, and it shouldn't have to be that way. But I feel like so many of us, and I'm going to assume you're probably very similar in that you'll be like, well, yeah, just give it to me and I'll take care of it. Is we are having to overcompensate for those people who say it's not my job, or this isn't what I'm here for, or I don't have time for another meeting, because those are the people that actually cost the company money, because them spending so much time complaining about something not being their job, they're not doing their job, or the thing they're complaining about not being their job.
well, and I think too, it's one of those things that I notice quite a bit more as a woman of color in tech,
Yep.
is especially just being female alone,
Yeah.
right? There is this assumption that like, I will do it for you because
Mm-hmm.
I should take care of you, right? And so I have actually had to push back a little bit more, and I will tell you, people fucking hate that. Like, I've had so many people be like, insinuate that I'm not pulling my weight, and I'm like, no, no, no. I'm doing all of this. That's for you to do. You want me to
Mm-hmm.
do it because you don't want to do it, and you think of it as being administrative work, and by definition pink coded,
Yeah.
right? Because you're used to women catering to you like this, because they
Mm-hmm.
have,
Especially in tech.
especially in tech, especially in business. Like, the number of people who will be like, oh, you'll order lunch, right, for the meeting. Why would I do that?
I'll put
Why
in
would I,
my
why would
order
I,
for lunch.
why would I do that? Like,
Yeah.
there's an executive assistant right there. That is literally part of their job. And it's like, but it's just because they're looking at me, right? And it's just the
Mm-hmm.
assumption. We could be in a room with 10 dudes and they will ask me to do it,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, well, you can coordinate like where we can go to happy hour, right? You also own Google. I don't understand. Like, you have a phone. I don't, like, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm just going to Google happy hour for 15 people. Like,
Yeah.
you know, but it is a lot of you find yourself taking on extra work. You find yourself holding more hands, and you find yourself being very careful about how you push back when you push back, because
Mm-hmm.
when you do, even if you are correct, this is not my job, I should not be doing this.
Yeah.
As soon as you say that, you're a bitch, right?
Yeah.
Pulling your weight, you're hard to work with, you're difficult, whatever, right? And so you learn very quickly, especially in these contexts where there is a little bit more entitlement, there is this assumption that we get paid so much because we're worth it, because we've been told
Yeah.
this. We get
Because we're
special
special
things.
boys.
We're special
Yeah.
boys, right? We're making the future. No, you're not. You're doing weird affiliate credit card marketing. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, and so, it's just like even like the urgency around a lot of that stuff. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to not be a pushover, but also make sure we're not upsetting egos here,
Hmm.
right? Because you're not going to make it. Like you're not going to get promoted. You're not going to be someone who is going to be given the same opportunities to like work on the exciting project or do the
Yeah.
professional development or whatever. So
Yeah. How do you go about walking that line of, and this is something I talk about a lot, not only on the show, but like even on LinkedIn or with other coworkers, where like if other people have a problem and they're not a 6 foot tall straight white guy like I am,
mm,
like I am happy to take those problems to management because I know it will be received differently if I say it than if anyone else says it. Because to me, it's less confrontational because it comes from someone that looks like them and that they assume is like them. It's very rarely the case that I am in any way similar to any of the people that I work under. But like to them, it's like looking in a mirror. It's not confrontational. So for you, as a black woman in a predominantly white male driven, especially at a managerial level, how do you find that line and how has it impacted you where you have felt like you've had to take on more than you can because you will be more at risk than I am. Like you said, you say no and you're a bitch. I say no and I'm being assertive.
assertive.
Like that is the language that is used. We've all heard it in offices. We will all continue to hear about it in offices because that's just the way it works and it's super fucked up. Super
Yeah,
fucked up.
we live in a real world. Like so, and I think that's part of it too, right? Like so, yeah. To your point, like exactly that. Like you find your allies, right? You find the
Hmm.
people who you can go, hey, they're not going to listen to me on this. And it doesn't even have to be something that's about, demographics. It could be something
Yeah.
about a project that you need to
Hmm.
push back and they're not going to hear you, So it's
Yeah.
like you make friends. You make friends with some of the engineers so that and especially ones that are like considered better or like, kind of rock stars. And
Yeah.
you go, hey, I'm really struggling with this team here or your team or whatever because they don't understand that like we can't do what they want and they won't hear me though, and then you get
Hmm.
them to do it, right? Like
Yeah.
I had a team who like straight up just refused to do stand-ups and it was mandatory. I didn't make the rules. It just is mandatory, right?
Yeah.
It took me over a week to get them to even agree to do it. Then on top of that, they couldn't agree on a time, right? And it was all this nonsense around like, well, this person's shifted their day to 7 to 3 because that's their flow state, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't care. I'm sorry. Our business hours are literally 9 to 6. So like that's
Yeah.
on you, but like you need to find a time that works here, right? And so finally, after like beating my head against the wall for like days, I just like went to, one of their like senior engineers and was like, I need you to get them on board because
Hmm.
we cannot keep spending this much time doing this. We are wasting
Yeah.
so much time. And you guys are so behind on your shit. Like, because one of the things, like, if I don't work with your team and all of a sudden I do work with your team, you are not getting extra fun resources, you in trouble.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
really interesting because they would think, oh, they love us so much, they're giving us more support. And I was like, no, you are all going to get fired. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
No,
trying to
the
help you.
bumpers just went up because you were
Yeah,
off the
you
rails.
are getting your hand held. Like, so it's like you find the people you can trust. You
Yeah.
honestly try to get to know your directors and your VPs. That is a big
Hmm.
part of it. I personally started working with a lot of our ERGs. So I co-chaired the one for, it was originally for Black employees. Then we didn't have enough Black employees. So we had to open it up to more minorities, which was telling. And then I was on leadership for our women's one as well. And,
Hmm.
that does give you a lot of power
Yeah.
because your companies want those ERGs. They want to put them on their websites. They want to talk about them in those surveys about, a great place to work or
Yeah.
whatever. They want to talk about them on LinkedIn. They want to show that they're doing something
Yep.
around, DEI. Whether or not they work or they are, different
Yeah.
conversation. But they want them, and they want you to be vocal. They want you to be out there. They want you to rep the company, at
Mm-hmm.
different events, conferences, offsites, whatever. So that is one way that is very helpful, right? Is to go to those ERGs, to work with those ERGs, to join them, because it does give you a
Mm-hmm.
certain amount of leverage, because it shows that you care about the company,
Yeah.
whether or not that's true, doesn't matter. And that they don't want fallout from that.
Mm-hmm.
They do not want their ERG for African American employees or Black employees to put out a statement at some point,
Yeah.
right? You do not want that smoke. And so, I think that's a really good tactic. I think in general, though, it really is like you got to take your lumps sometimes, and you have to be very careful. Now, to be fair, a lot of us already know how to do this. We do this in our life all the time,
Yeah.
right? Like we know how to code switch. We know how to make sure that we're safe in a lot
Yeah.
of ways, right? But I also think there's like some other stuff, like a lot of things I do. I could be blunt with people. And
Mm-hmm.
there have been times where someone, makes an assumption, does something, and I'll go, why did you ask me that?
Yeah.
And they have to stop because they did it automatically. A lot of times it's not malicious, it's just subconscious, right?
Yep.
And so it's like, why did you ask me to do that just now? I mean, not like in a very like you just chill way, like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Like out of everybody here, why did you ask me?
Yeah.
And sometimes it is because they're like, oh, I honestly thought it was part of your duties. Other times they're like, I don't know. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, well, why don't we think about that?
Yeah. And I love that you call it out, because I am a person that is a great example of, I grew up being told very specific things and very specific roles. And then when I got into the real world and any of those things were challenged, it was the first time I ever had to think about it. And
Right.
this is common for, let's be real, most white men, because everything is built for us. That's the way this works. I can walk into things that other people can't. Things are built for me, and I can recognize that now in a way that 15 years ago, there's no way I could have.
Sure.
But it took people questioning me or challenging me on things, and even small stuff. Like I could make an offhand comment, and if it was as simple as, well, why'd you say that? Or why did you ask this? And then I had to internalize it in a way that I had never had to internalize it before.
Right.
And that stuff has helped me grow so much and expanded my worldview so much, but then also made it easier for me to help other people, because, like, oh, I can see how this could go if I'm not there to back someone up.
Right.
Like,
And to your point earlier, like you are more likely to be listened to by people
mm-hmm.
who look like you. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's true for everybody, but it's especially true, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's it's the thing that happens where like a super toxic man all of a sudden gets online and go, I had a daughter and I think women are people now. And you're like, oh, okay. Like,
Yeah. What were they before?
right. And you're like, well, okay, what was going on here? But it is that, it's so common that it's become a joke, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it is this like, or it's the like, oh, who was it, Cheney, because his daughter got married, and all of a sudden he was like, I'm cool with gay people, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, are you now? Okay,
Yeah.
so I think it's like there is a lot of that, and there is something to be said for that, and that is why allyship actually matters, right? And of
Mm-hmm.
course, there's a whole garden path we can go down about allyship being problematic at times or whatever, but like
Yeah, of course.
but in real life, right? I think that a lot of that's also like a lot of that's like a little bit of discourse. I mean, you do see that in tech as well too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
during the 2020 and the George Floyd protests, my
Yeah.
ERG, especially me and my co-chair, got thrown into the middle of this, and we were doing an enormous amount of labor for these people
Mm-hmm.
that we did not sign up to do, because that is not the purpose of an ERG, right? And
Yeah.
that's the other thing. You have to make sure you're not getting co-opted all the time, because what was happening for us, and I've heard this from other people who also participate in their ERGs, is also for people who don't know, ERG is an employee resource group. It's usually
Mm-hmm.
around an underrepresented group. I realize I'm just saying things.
That's when you're in those worlds, all the acronyms
Yeah, all
become
the
so second
jargon,
nature.
and everyone's
Yeah.
like, what is this? But one of the things is that like we were oftentimes like doing work to make white people feel better, as opposed to actually helping our constituents in the context,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the idea is that like we're supposed to be a supportive network to help each other in this very difficult
Yeah.
industry, and we were supposed to have that support from our companies for things like panels, talks, conferences,
Yeah.
opportunities, whatever, right? Even like we asked for like more comprehensive DEI training for employees as
Hmm.
well. Like, and it was, and even that, I'm like, we shouldn't be the ones talking about this. Like, that's 100% should be HR dealing with that, which it was eventually,
Yeah.
but we got so much pushback from things all the time, right? Like, if we wanted to do budgeting stuff, we were constantly getting pushback on our budget. And I'm like, y'all bought 17 t-shirts for no reason. Let me get budget for Black History Month. What do you mean? Like, and so like stuff like that, or like,
Yeah.
if we wanted to do something that was a little bit more challenging, right? Like, we had someone come in to talk about like, decolonizing language and what
Hmm.
that looks like, right? And just the idea of it, right?
Yeah.
Even that, they were like, that might like be a little bit too spicy. And I'm like, for whom? Say what you
For,
mean.
for the people that need to change, it might be too spicy for the people that
Yeah.
need to change.
Like, explain who you are worried about offending, because it sure as shit is not us. So like,
Yeah.
stuff like that, or like, so again, so during 2020, all of a sudden we were being asked to like speak at all hands about what was going on and like help curate like some resources
Yeah.
that we could put together. And I was like, I mean, I guess like some of that, sure, but this isn't actually helping us. This is helping
Hmm.
you,
Yeah.
right? To the point where it got so bad that me and my co-chair had people DMing us on the weekends, like just in full tailspin. Am I going to
Hmm.
get fired if I go to a protest? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't
Yeah.
work in HR. I have no fucking idea. It's 9 p.m. on a Sunday. What are you doing? What are you doing? Also,
Yeah.
you just told me you don't know any Black people in your personal life
Yeah.
and you live
Yeah.
in the Bay Area. Okay. Okay, right? I mean, I just, so it was
Yeah.
all of this, and finally it just got to the point where like, we were talking to a bunch of our VPs, and I was like, we have to have a difficult conversation about what's going on right now,
Hmm.
because this is horrible for our mental health. This is not our job, honestly. And
Yeah.
what is happening right now? Why are we doing this? Right? This feels performative. It feels weird. Like, why isn't HR handling this? Like what's going on? And they were like, you are correct. Our bad. I was like, also, there are people who professionally consult for this, and you
Yeah.
just don't want to spend the money,
Hmm.
right? They cost a lot, sure, but they should. And if
Yeah.
you are actually committed to this, then you need to show me that, because all you're doing right now is making us feel like shit and like parading us around like weird tokens. Like,
Hmm.
they did eventually bonus us, which was nice, but okay. you know, so there is some of that. You do have to kind of be able to speak to that, and I do think
Hmm.
that like there is a certain amount of like courage and bravery that you have to have. And when we were talking about the team thing, one of the things I was thinking about is how much like I do believe that we should all be working towards the same goal, right, in
Hmm.
these situations, and that
Yeah.
is what you do sign up for to a certain degree, right? Like, I agree that
Yep.
we're going to do this. Okay. I think the disconnect is becoming worse and worse now because of what's been going on in the industry, that like, to a certain extent, we no longer have any incentive to act like that.
Hmm.
I got laid off last January. I've been unemployed for a year. My last company had 2 rounds of layoffs before I finally got hit, right?
Hmm.
They drop you. They don't care. And we
Yeah.
know that now. And so now I think there is also this thing around, do I want to engage with this part of myself at this place that
Hmm.
does not care about me?
Yeah.
Right? Like, in the next place I work, I probably won't join an ERG. I probably won't help them with their DEI stuff. I probably won't even talk about it that much, even if it's a problem, right? Because ultimately, like, we've broken that. There is no reason for me now
Yeah.
to do anything that's not directly in my self-interest. And if in my self-interest is to shut the fuck up, then that's my self-interest now.
Yep.
Right. And I think that's the problem. I think it's a bad way for this to go. I think it makes work really difficult because
Yeah.
nobody wants to like, work together or collaborate correctly, right?
Hmm.
But it also creates more and more of this like, we are socialized at work. We spend so much time there. We should
Yeah.
have opportunities to learn and grow as people. We should have opportunities to meet people that we wouldn't necessarily meet, because it is not based on like our tribe or like our neighborhood or whatever.
Yeah.
But as we are just, hitting this wall of like profits over everything, growth forever, fuck you, like,
Hmm.
it's just like you're not going to get that anymore.
Yeah.
You
I do not believe
loyalty to companies exists at all, because companies have proven time and time again they will not be loyal to us.
Right.
Like we already know we're not going to have Social Security.
Right.
Medicaid won't exist. Like retirement for anyone who's not currently retired is a pipe dream. Like it's not a reality with the way the system is currently set up.
No.
And I mean, I'm 34, so I mean, I know we're not technically in a recession. We're essentially in the second recession of my life.
Right.
Like to have two back to back while I'm in, working age, like I know I've been laid off before. I'll be laid off again at some point. It's just it's going to happen because industries are so profit focused that hey, we got to hire 100 people because it makes us look good. Hey, our stock increased. Profitability is also now down. We need to fire 120 people. So
Right.
like that's just kind of the way it works in both startup. I've primarily worked in marketing. Pretty much all marketing agencies work that way. Always have.
Yeah.
Tech is absolutely that way. So there's no loyalty to companies because it's been proven time and time again they will never be loyal to us. And I think that, like you said, where that really hurts us in the long run is we don't have incentive to build a community at work the same way we used to, because it's not expected that, hey, even 18 months from now, I'll still be working with the same team. Because realistically, in 18 months, it'll be an entirely new team if I'm even still there. Like, that's just how turnover works now. No one stays anywhere because you don't have to. You're always incentivized to go somewhere else. You're never incentivized to stay. Um, so every company's just shooting themselves in the foot
Right.
by not giving us the things that will make us happy at work. It seems so simple, but when
Mhm.
profitability becomes the only thing that matters, if it's profitability at all costs, for companies that aren't profitable and never will be, but
Sure.
it makes them look good to their investors, they're just fucking us over as the employees, which then fucks them over in the long run because they're going to lose the best talent because
Well,
good talent doesn't
100%.
stay.
And not only that, it's not even just they're losing talent, they're losing the ability to actually innovate and grow in a way that is actually sustainable, right? Because like,
Absolutely.
you can't finish a project, you can't have a long-term goal, you can't have
Mm-hmm.
a really good strategic plan that you can implement because you're constantly changing people over, you're constantly ramping people up, you're constantly doing more work with less people who are burning out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not sitting there and thinking to yourself, like, it's myopic. Everything's like, it's always what's in front of you, right? Like, how
Yeah.
many projects have you been on that got killed immediately because someone just saw something shiny and then all of a sudden you're like, well, okay, you know,
Weekly. It happens weekly.
right, all the time. You're just constantly just shifting, 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 and it's exhausting. And I think
Mm-hmm.
also it does create a lot of bullshit time, bullshit meetings, bullshit emails, and like bullshit jobs, honestly.
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of jobs, mine included, in a lot of contexts where like you would not need this
Mm-hmm.
if you had a better streamlined approach and you had these sort of goals around communication, collaboration, like actually like finishing something. What is your
Yeah.
actual North Star? And not chasing a dollar every 2 minutes because the market has slightly shifted or because
Mm-hmm.
you think it has, right? I've worked a lot of places that their entire strategy was chasing their competitor.
Yeah.
And you say that out loud and you're like, how does that feel like a strategy to you? How does
Mm-hmm.
that feel like it's going to do anything to you? And
Yeah.
it's like, well, we're not really like, yes, you are. That is exactly what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, it's interesting because I work with so many people who are similar jobs to me, similar levels, or like even like, different titles, same idea, right? Like producers
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And we are all hitting that same exact, here are the problems that we have right now. There is no
Mm-hmm.
consistent communication in either direction that is clear and like easy to follow and easy to get.
Yeah.
Everyone feels like they don't know what's going on. They always feel like they don't know what's going on, right? Why does everyone feel like that, right? Everybody's in too many meetings, but they don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Strategy is never clear. We don't know why we're doing what we're doing. We're getting random work, but we don't know what we're working towards. We don't
Yeah.
understand the point of it. So sometimes it's like, well, I want to do this because it seems stupid. But it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, there's a reason. It's just no one explained it to you because they don't
Yeah.
think you need to know. Right. But again,
Yeah.
there's no buy in because of that. Right. People don't feel heard at work. They don't feel well compensated. They don't feel like they have the ability to, really like dig into certain things. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of people have told me they do not feel that they have a clear trajectory in their career
Oh
without
yeah.
leaving, that they have to leave their company if they want to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
There is no way to get promoted. There is no way to get a raise. You have to go.
Yeah.
And then they go, why can't we keep our talent? And you're like, I don't know, maybe because you're not incentivizing them to stay in any real way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if we're already like agreeing that like we're not even going to bother with DEI anymore, because if you notice, that is gone. That's gone.
Yeah.
We were real into it for about a year. And then we said, oh, no, thank you. That costs money. And we don't care.
Yep.
Which is fine. You don't need to care. But like, you're going to keep pushing away people who you do need. You need an adult in the room. You need a person with a different perspective in the room to go,
absolutely.
We can't just do whatever this is, y'all. Like, you know, and so, and I don't know. And I also just think in general, it's bad for society. But, you know, it's interesting that like you can cross different sectors of the same industry, whether it's like video games or, you know, fintech or whatever it is, right? Actual products that you're actually making, right? Like, and everyone is saying the same thing. They're saying that these are the biggest issues that we have, where we are consistently, my favorite thing, doing surveys. We're always doing surveys, satisfaction surveys. We got to get 80% on the survey. That's your goal. My goal is to get people to say they want to work here. How are we actually doing that? Because you can't ask questions, because they're always like, I feel XYZ at work. I feel that my manager hears me. I feel supported in my mental health. I feel that the company cares about my wellness. None of those things actually matter to people.
Yeah.
They're completely subjective. And if you're already pissed, you're pissed. So it's not going to change anything. What you should be asking is, do you think you are adequately compensated for the amount of work that you are tasked to do? Do you think that your healthcare is appropriate? Do you think that like the company has a clear strategy and you understand your role in that? Like there's different ways to do those questions, but you don't want to ask those questions, because if you do,
they want to ask the questions that they already know the answer to, or that they know people won't answer honestly.
Right.
So it's this methodology of leading the conversation. And I do the same thing on client calls, not in a malicious way, but I try to answer the question before I know they're going to ask it. Because if I'm on back-to-back calls all day, that saves me time. I don't have time to go down a rabbit hole. I'll just answer it because I know you're going to ask it anyway. So let's just jump right to it. And so by sending you a survey at 3:00 on Friday, when you've already had a shit week and you're pissed off, you're just going to click 5s on everything so you can move on to the next thing, because you don't have time. And even if they were going to discuss it, you don't want to discuss it because you know nothing's going to change, because you wouldn't be having those problems if the company was already talking about those problems.
Right. And like, and the interesting thing too, right, is like they get it. I worked somewhere that it was incentivized, right? So it was like, hey, we want to land on Forbes's great place to work, or whatever, whoever does that fake certification. Or, and it was literally like, if your entire team 100% answers this survey like positively by this day, then like your team gets a thing. And it's like, okay, but you know, so that's nothing. And then, you know, the internal surveys, you know, when you first start working somewhere, you're like, yes, gonna answer this real honestly, gonna be great. It's anonymous. All right. By the time you're on your second one, you're like, this bullshit again. Because we had people who just stopped answering them. And then it became a thing of like your manager, you know, constantly like poking you, being like, did you do the survey? How about the survey? How's the survey going? Did you do the survey? Do the survey. You know what? Why don't we just take stand up wall and do the survey together at one time? And then that way we just did it. We already did it, you know, because they're being told that they need to get their teams to do this. They are being judged on that, whether or not you filled them out.
Yeah.
But at some point when you do these, you see, you know, you go to your all hands, they tell you the results, they show you like, you know, which teams are the least happy for what reason. And then they say, okay, and as leadership, we got together and we have task forces around this, or special teams. And this group of people is going to handle the communication issue. And this person over here is going to handle the, I don't know, like the, whatever it is, the engineering space, about something. And then what happens almost immediately is you never hear about it again. Right? And you go and you're in all hands and you ask a question. You go, hey, what's going on with those survey task force? We haven't really heard much. It's been like 3 months. Any progress? What strategies have you guys come up with, or what projects are you working on to address this? And they go, yeah, well, yeah, I mean, we're still doing that, you know, but, you know, we've really, it's been difficult to find the time because we still have all these other deadlines for Q4, or like, right? And then it's like, oh, okay, so this bullshit. Got it. And then you stop answering it.
I worked in an agency, and it was going through like a really really difficult period of high turnover. Like every week was somebody's last week. It was
Yeah.
just, it was crazy how many people were leaving. So their Glassdoor reviews started tanking because everybody that was leaving negative reviews. So they started assigning, like, hey, we're getting negative review a week. So we're going to assign 2 people each Friday. You have to write a positive review. And
Mhm.
that review had to be submitted to your manager for them to read it. And then you would post it.
Yeah. No, I
And
mean,
that,
we had a similar thing. We had a glass door drive where, again, they made it a contest because like if they gamify stuff, people will do it.
yeah.
And it was for that same reason. We lost almost our entire product team in like a
Mhm.
month. And so you can imagine, right? First of all, that slowed everything down because there's no product managers or
Yeah.
people who can make decisions on all that. And on top of that, they a lot of them went to the same company, so there was this like negative thing
Mhm.
happening where everyone's like, "Oh, you work there? Ooh, been here and stuff." So
Yeah.
like it was this like we're doing a glass door drive, like explain on Glassdoor why you love to work here, blah blah blah, and then you again get some sort of piece of
Mhm.
swag or whatever, which I like to call here. You throw this out,
Yeah.
because
More laundry?
oh yay, thank you. I needed another coffee mug. Okay, you know, but and so because of that too, then like then none of this matters anymore, right? Because
Yeah.
you're lying. Like I have a friend who is being tasked with this survey nonsense, which is not what he was supposed to be doing. So he hates
Mhm.
it and it doesn't make any sense. So he's trying to get them to change at least the questions or the metric that he's being measured on because he's like,
Yeah.
this shouldn't be tied to my employment, honestly.
Mhm.
But one of the things that he was having a difficult conversation with his leadership team was he was like, this isn't going to work because you do know that people lie.
Yeah.
And they looked at him like that has never occurred to them before. And he was like, if you tie very specific things to people's bonuses or even their ability to stay employed,
Mhm.
they are never going to tell you what's going on.
No.
Why would they? Why would they would be punished? Like, of course you're going to lie. How's the project going? It's on track. Is
Yeah.
it? I mean, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the wrong track, but it's on a track.
It's on
Yeah.
a track. There is a track. Like, but you know what I mean? And you wait until it's an emergency. You wait until you have
Yep.
to be faced with it. But you cover your ass. Like you figure
Yeah.
out a way to make it not your fault. So
Mhm.
if you tell me I have to do a survey and the ability for the survey to be positive to a certain degree matters in some
Yeah.
way. Yeah, fives all around. Great place to work. Please don't fire me.
Mhm.
Especially not right now, because there's nowhere for me to go.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it does feel like a trap at most companies because it kind of is. Um, I will give one positive example because I actually do have an example of a company that does this really, really well. It's a digital agency called Client Boost. I had their CEO on he was one of the first episodes, and they do what they call "How can I be better for you?" And it's essentially you sit down with your manager every month and there's a running sheet of like, hey, where are you at on this? How are you feeling with this? They do talk about pay of like, hey, where do you want to be at in 12 months? Or at the end of this year, what do you think you should be getting paid based on your current workload? And you just run through it. And like, it is, there's no incentive, like no gamification. You're not incentivized in it. It is just an open conversation with your manager, and
Mhm.
then the managers all take those and then that goes up to the higher level and they review all of it together. So it's this constant feedback loop of like, hey, where are people actually at? And if you just hop on that call, because it's not just a survey, you click a button, like you have to talk to them.
Right.
So if every month when you have that meeting you give the same answer, they're going to dig in because it's like, well, obviously every month isn't a 5. You can't be 5 every single month. Like,
Right.
where are you actually at? Are you actually happy? Um, and it works because people are encouraged to give feedback. Obviously, it feels like a trap at first because you're like, oh, you're going
Yeah.
to use this against me, but it's not. Like they genuinely care about those things. So there are companies that see through a lot of that bullshit because they've been at agencies or companies where that was
Mhm.
happening, and so they saw it. But unlike everybody else who then goes and starts a company, they don't then replicate the problems that they saw. The goal is to, okay, how do we fix this so people actually want to work here? Like, you should enjoy your job and you should feel seen and feel heard, which is like the lowest, absolute
Right.
bare minimum. Um, and like when I first spoke to JD, their CEO, he's like, yeah, the bar is underground for companies and the way they treat your
Bars in
employees.
hell.
It's
I mean,
like,
at this point, like,
mhm,
I mean, again, like as someone who's been applying everywhere, like I have a lot of experience, I have a great resume, whatever. Like,
yeah,
you're running into one, you're applying against a million people. I mean,
yeah,
like, someone gifted me LinkedIn Premium for like 6 months,
hmm,
so I can see how many people applied to some jobs, and it's
yeah,
like the job's been up for 2 days and 2,000 people have applied to it.
hmm,
Okay, you know, but on top
yeah,
of that, like, I'm seeing these job descriptions that are poorly written, that are really outlandish, like,
yeah,
$25 an hour, but you need 15 years of experience and a master's degree, and this and that and the other thing, and you have to
yep,
travel 3 times a year, a month, or whatever. And I'm just like, is this real? Like, what? Who's
hmm,
this for?
yeah,
Right? Because it's not even like something where like I'm looking in the wrong like location. It's like this is in San Francisco, and I'm like,
hmm,
what's the poverty line here? Like, what do you?
yeah,
Right? Like, what is this? And it's not even a nonprofit or something. It's like it's a startup, an AI startup or something, which just feels like a scam. But like,
yeah,
it's hard too, because I think there are a lot of really great companies, right? And I
hmm,
think there are places that are trying, that do care about this stuff. I think there are people in leadership in these different industries who want to change that. I think especially
hmm,
our generation and lower
yeah,
are or younger are seeing this and going, I don't want this for me, right? I
absolutely.
don't want this for anybody, honestly. It's unsustainable, and
Hmm,
we're watching it be unsustainable. So I think there
yeah,
is like I mean, and I feel like a lot of people are talking about this more, right?
hmm,
So
yeah,
I don't want to like be all doom and gloom here, but like I do think that it's really rough out there right now, especially
hmm,
if you are somewhere like the Bay Area, where there's a lot of people in tech that are all getting laid off at the same time and all competing for the same pool of jobs.
yeah.
But
Well, that leads me to a good question. You said you worked in nonprofits before, so do you specifically want to stay in the tech space? And with it being as difficult as it
yeah,
is, what's the draw? Because I get asked constantly about like, why do you work in marketing? Because marketing seems awful. And I'm like, yeah, marketing can be really awful. It can be fun. It's not fulfilling in any way. I find no fulfillment in my job, and that's fine.
you
I'm
don't
not
have
a
to.
person that expects that.
Yeah,
Like my life outside of work should be the fulfilling thing. My job should just be the thing I do. It should be the least important, least interesting thing about me.
100%.
Um, but what's keeping you in tech? Is there a draw in that where like you're in that,
Money. It's
which is
just money.
fair?
I live in one
Yeah.
of the most expensive cities in the world. Like,
Hmm.
also, that's the game here. There's not a lot else for what I do, right?
Yeah.
Like, nonprofits are great well, okay, full disclosure. So nonprofits, I was in them for a long time. I fell into it after college. I graduated during 2006, so you understand what the landscape was then too.
Yep.
And temp work as a admin kind of kept rising up that way. Went from child welfare to a foundation because it's much more fun to give away money than it is to ask for money.
Yeah.
Also, social work is so depressing. Uh,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
but also because we also had government money, so we were getting a lot of IOUs for things, right?
Yeah.
Time period. It was, remember all the furloughs and everything. But in
Yep.
general, I was young. I was in my early 20s, and I was like turning to Batman at this point. I was like, I'm just gonna steal all the children somehow. I don't know. So, and I don't even want kids. That's the weirdest thing. So like, but eventually I found my way into like foundation work. And so I was a grants manager for a while. And I liked that because I really enjoyed, doing the work around like reading the grants, meeting the people,
Hmm.
selecting grants, like following up, doing the project management on that end of like, are you actually building the park you said you were going to build? Are you actually doing the program?
Yeah.
And to see the program work, like there's a lot of reward of like, here is a tangible thing that happened and it did net good. And we can look at that and that is nice.
Yeah.
What is not nice is that you get paid literally nothing. And every time you are asked to do overtime, there were times where I was asked to like drive down to Ventura in the middle of the night, which I was like, I don't know, that feels unsafe. Like, okay, for like weird reasons. Like I had to watch
Yeah.
someone staple a grant once, and I was like, okay. Just really weird stuff. But
Yeah.
every time there was a thing of like, I don't want to go stand in front of the, family resource center to block an ex-employee from coming in because I'm pretty sure that we should call the cops, right?
Yeah.
It was always this idea of like, but the cause, but you're doing it for the cause. Don't you care about the kids? Don't you care about the cause? And it's like, you can only guilt
Mhm.
trip someone so much when they're
Yeah.
not being able to pay their rent, or they're like, just not living a fun life, honestly. And so, and again, like especially in the Bay Area, like if you want to get paid well, like this is one way to do it, especially if you're not specialized, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't have a master's, right? I'm not in medical, I'm not in certain things, right? So it's like when you end up in these sort of generalized managerial positions, which, again, a lot of people may call a bullshit job, that's fine. You do end up in tech. And I think people use tech in a way that's like not totally right. Like my last company, I worked for their tech team, but they're a skincare company, right? They're based online. That's the whole thing. But like,
Yeah.
we call these things tech, but we really just mean everywhere else. Like, like I recently applied to the Gap for their, like one of their teams, right? But it's like, you wouldn't think of that as being a tech team, but or being in tech, but like literally everything is at this point, right?
Yeah.
So it's more just about, honestly, it's cost of living for me. I do really enjoy like unraveling the problems of it. I like talking about how do we work more efficiently. I like talking about processes. I like those kinds of things. I think it's interesting. It's not tech specific, right?
Yeah.
Like that is a job I can do anywhere and would do anywhere. And I have been trying to look into, maybe like a job at Kaiser, or like somewhere a little bit more old school businessy that doesn't have some of these growing pains and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like I'm open to it. It's just it's not something that's really easy to get out of here. And also once you're in it,
No, it does. Most types of jobs, especially a job that's kind of a specialty, like you learn a very specific set of skills and rules to make the job happen. Like my goal was never to be an account manager.
No. Is that anybody's goal? Does anyone?
I hope not.
Oh,
I
mommy,
really,
daddy, when I'm an old lady, I want to be an accountant. Like no one says that. I want to be an astronaut.
I hope not. I really, really hope not. It would bum me out if one of my kids is like, man, Dad, when I grow up, I want to be an account manager. It's not a bad job, but like, it's one of those things you just kind of stumble into. I was working in a warehouse and they had an account manager job open up. And I was like, that job's talking. I can talk.
Right.
Like that's the easy part. I can learn the rest of the stuff after because I have the most important part, which is I can confidently speak and I'm not afraid to get on a phone call with someone. Like that to me was like the barrier. So it's like anything else, I can figure the rest out. Like it can't be that hard. And then I just accidentally got into marketing. And then that's been the last 12 years what I've done just completely by accident. And now that I'm in it, I'm like, it makes sense for me to stay. If I go somewhere else, I will make less money. So it makes sense to stay in this thing. And that's really what has kind of fueled my desire to be like, all right, now how do I expand? I've established my career. Like we moved out of Atlanta. We're somewhere we want to be. Like now I can really focus on making my life more of what I want it to be and less about a career focus because I don't give a shit about it. It's not important to me. It's so secondary. It's not even secondary. It's bottom of the list. So like, how do I find fulfillment outside of those things now? Because I feel like we get stuck in this idea and being in a nation that is hyper capitalism, we're just told like, no, you find a job and you become the best at it and you will be rewarded and you will succeed and you'll make a lot of money.
You have to move up. You have to want to get promoted. I do not want to be promoted. That's the thing. I'm actually at the level where I'll take all the money you want to give me. Please never make me a director. I don't want to manage people. Please. I do not want to do these things, right? But I want to go back to something you said about how you got into account management that I think is really interesting because I've been talking a lot about it right now with a lot of people, especially women who've been laid off and are applying for jobs. You looked at that job and said, oh, it's talking. I can do that. I can learn the rest of it on the way. And they hired you.
I was in the warehouse at the company though, so they knew my personality. That was my in.
Doesn't matter because it does not work that way for other people.
Oh, I'm aware. I'm
very
aware.
specific to that, but I want to call it out because it's something that people do not think about, and also they don't think about it when they're talking to certain people. Right? The number of people who were like, "Oh, well, you should just apply," and I was like, "Is that literally how y'all live your life?" Because all of us are like, okay, we got to make sure we tick every single box. I was reading some statistic that like white men apply to jobs where they only fit 30% of the qualifications, and most women and people of color, 90%.
Oh, I 100%
right?
believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that's like actually really changed how I am doing
Hmm.
my job search because I was doing that. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, well, they're never going to talk to me because like whatever. And
Yeah.
now I'm like, fuck it, let's go. Like, we ride at midnight because like it never occurred to me that people just bullshit. Right?
Hmm.
Like it never occurred to me that you just get in there and you just talk and then they hire you. And we've all worked with those people who
Hmm.
got hired and they're stone cold idiots. And you're like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
Turns out they interview super well. And people
As
just inherently trust them.
as one of those former stone cold idiots who just stumbled my way into a job, I am fully aware of it. Like anytime someone talks about white privilege,
Right.
I'm like, yeah, it's not that my childhood was easy.
It's also
It
not what it means,
wasn't.
right?
It's and I feel like that's what people always equate it to. I'm like, no, it's that I never had to question if there was a career path for me. I never, when I submit a resume, I don't have to worry about if they're going to see my name and be like, that's a weird name.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is a prejudice that absolutely still
Yeah,
happens.
100%.
If they look up my LinkedIn, I'm not worried about them seeing my picture. And even though like I've got tattoos, whatever, like it's still not something where they're going to see it and then pass over me because of the way I look. Like those are
100%.
not things that I have to think about. That is my privilege, and I'm fully aware of that. And I call that bullshit out.
Yeah.
Um,
And on
but
the other
yeah,
side,
oh, go
you
ahead.
never have to be worried that your coworkers or somebody else in your company is going to refer to you as a diversity hire.
Hmm.
Right? Because like now that's what I'm hearing more than like anything else. Instead of like, oh, the white privilege of like these guys just get hired. I mean, that's still true. The confidence of
Yeah.
the straight white man, amazing. But I have when my two companies ago, when we went to remote first,
Hmm.
it opened up our pool, right? We were able to hire from other locations.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden we hired more black people. And they were shocked when they got here because they were hearing shit that we had never had an issue with before because it was everyone was in the office and it wasn't
Yeah.
weird because there was like 500 employees, like 10 black people, so like whatever. But
Hmm.
all of a sudden you hire 10 more. Now there's 20 and still 500 employees, and people are going, oh, fucking diversity hires, da 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 da, and you're like, what the hell, dude? Like,
Hmm.
no, they just hired a bunch of people who happen to live in DC, and DC has a lot of black people. Like, whatever,
Yeah.
like, you know.
Hmm.
And so it's interesting because like when I was younger, it was really like more just about like, oh, white privilege is just, being able to be trusted or, getting into the room. And now
Hmm.
it's the privilege that instead of talking about it that way, we're talking about it in this weird other way where it's the privilege that like people just agree that you know what you know and that they're not trying to make some statement by having you there. And if anything, you
Hmm.
might be smarter than everyone else because we all know now that like, white men can't do anything. So like if you're
Hmm.
here, you must be the best, which is such a weird way that had gotten skewed over time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I've seen that, and it's something that I do grapple with because I know it's true when I walk into a room or when I go into a place. And like, even though I'm aware and it's not something I ever feel like I am trying to use to my benefit or trying to manipulate in any way, like, I know that it's happening and like having conversations about it. I worked for a company where I started and then a friend of mine did, and he's a black guy. And we had essentially the same role. Essentially, our titles were different, but day in, day out, same responsibilities. He made 10,000 a year less than I did
Yeah.
for no reason
No.
at all. There's no reason for it. It was just that I got 10,000 a year more.
Because they thought they could get away with it. That's the
Hmm.
reason, right?
Because they didn't, because they tell everybody don't talk about your salaries. So I always
Which
talk about my salary
we got to
because
talk about salaries always.
absolutely. I also found out that all the women there were hourly. Men were salaried. White men got paid more. And
That feels like that's harder to hide somehow. Like,
it's
what do you
it's
like? My timesheet, you're what now?
yeah. Well, they made us all clock in. Even
Oh, okay.
salary people had to clock in. They were like, no, it's just so we know you're in the building. That kind
Oh,
of stuff.
oh, okay.
But yeah, but it turned out, and because they tell everybody don't talk about your salaries. And
Right.
anytime I'm told not to, I'm like, well, it's because they're hiding something. One
Yeah.
of us is getting paid way less. I know that much to be true if they're telling us never to speak of it.
Yeah, and
So
it could be the thing of like, you get punished for being there longer, right? Because
mhm,
like if you got hired 2 years ago and a new person comes in, that person's going to make more money than you.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to what we were talking about, about there just not being that trajectory anymore inside a company. So instead of saying like, okay, like we're going to hire this new person, let's talk about how we like level out your salary or like get you somewhere, above. It's like, oh, well, I guess I have to leave to go make more money now,
Yeah. We're incentivized to leave, not to stay, which
Right.
is weird. Like you said, it slows down everything, especially if you're in a pivotal role, if you're in a product role and a product manager or a product director leaves,
Right.
everything gets pushed back 6 months.
Yeah.
Like,
because you got to find somebody, you got to onboard them, you got to,
And it's not that everybody wants to be a product director. Like you said, you don't want to move into a director role. I don't want to move into a director role. Why would I want that? I am happy just having conversations with my clients. I don't need to manage my coworkers as well. That for me, I get nothing out of that. That is
no.
not something I am looking for in any fashion.
No, and it's interesting how that gets turned into this really weird negative of like you lack
Agreed.
ambition and you're lazy, right?
Mhm.
It's like I had this awful manager and her thing was that she was insanely ambitious to the point where like she was weird to be around,
Yeah.
like just not somebody I'm trying to chill with. And like it just and it made for a very horrible relationship between the two of us because our
Mhm.
philosophies are so different, right?
Yeah.
But, we were at some team thing and our director asked us some philosophical question and the answer was supposed to be like, contentment. I'm like my goal is contentment, right? Or
Yeah.
like I want my friends and family to be well cared for, whatever. And her answer was, I want to be rich. And I was like, oh, damn. Because that to me, I was like, in order to do what though? Like, you want to
Yeah.
be rich in order to not have to worry about creature
Mhm.
comforts or like if there's a medical disaster or, take care of your
Yeah.
family. No, that's not it. And I was like, oh, shit. But because of that, it became this really big problem in our relationship between me wanting to get deeper and better at the job I'm actually doing
Yeah.
and expand my skill set inside of that, like was still ambition to grow as a person, right? And to grow
Mhm.
in deeper into that because like I don't know everything about program manager. There's like 17 versions of it, like,
Yeah.
whatever. And me not wanting a constant promotion and not asking for them all the time. I asked for raises
Mhm.
all the time, sure. But
Yeah.
like I never asked for a promotion because I did not want it. I
Mhm.
liked working with the teams who were building the thing. I did not
Yeah.
want to be in strategic planning meetings with a bunch of VPs arguing over God knows what.
Mhm.
It's all hypothetical and like not based in reality. So like
Yeah.
it became this problem to the point where like I almost got fired because it was like you're lazy, you don't have ambition,
Mhm.
you're not trying hard enough. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like I'm managing like 15 teams, I'm showing results. Like
Yeah.
what do you need me to do? And what am I not doing in this role? And it was really that like I wasn't hungry enough.
Mhm.
And I'm like, but I don't need to be. I don't have a lot of expenses. I don't have any dependents.
Mhm.
You guys pay me an enormous amount of money, considering I was living off 40K before, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's and nonprofits, like at some point, like, and plus all the perks, like I'm not paying for my lunches, I'm not paying for like,
Yep.
coffee, like everything's been given to me. So I have even fewer expenses than I normally would.
Yeah.
They were giving me discounts on a gym membership. Like that wasn't paying for
Mhm.
it. So I don't need more money. Like I'm also in a place where like I'm good. And the
Yeah.
idea that I don't want more money, even that alone was like, I mean, it's like, yeah, I'll take it. Like if you're offering it, of course, I'm not crazy. But like
Mhm.
this idea that like, but don't you want to buy a house? Don't you want to do these things? And it's like, I no, actually, I don't need to.
Mhm.
Like, I have no intention of ever buying a Lambo,
Yeah.
you know? I mean,
Same. No, I run into that a lot. Like during the interview process with most any company, they ask what's your 5-year goal? And I'm like, my 5-year goal is all personal life related. I have
yeah.
no career 5-year goals to still be employed. My
Yeah.
with you, I don't fucking know. But to just have a job, like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, y'all
I
doing layoffs every 18 months. What do you mean 5-year goal? Has anyone actually been
exactly.
here 5 years? Can I
Yeah.
see them?
Yeah.
Are they the
How many
CEO?
how many times are you gonna sell the company in the next 5 years?
Right.
Like that's
I know. I think it's such a weird question these days because I'm like, this isn't like you stay someone for for 25 years and you get a gold
Mhm.
watch, and they say
Yeah.
good luck, thanks for all the work you did. we
Yeah.
respect you and we're glad we were, we were there with you. That's not what's happening, right?
No.
Like, some companies, I mean, aren't even like letting people actually be full time. They're having them re-up contracts every 6 months, even though it's technically not super legal. But like, okay,
Yeah.
Like I have a bunch of friends who every 6 months might have to look for a job again, and then they may have like a month or two in between, and then they can get rehired on the same contract but slightly different, and it's sort of something, and it's such a waste of time. Just pay people. You have billions of dollars.
I had a friend who was in the financial industry, and he was a contractor for a financial company, and it was just constantly re-upping. And so like he had technically only been there for 6 months, but he had been there for like 7 years. It's just
Right.
every 6 months he's technically a new employee. And because he didn't have the same certification as new people that were hired on coming in, he was training them how to do their job, even though he was not certified to do the job because he'd been there long enough to learn it.
Okay.
And it's like, in what world does this make sense? How is this, if
Also,
scaling
pay for the
is
man's
the goal?
certification. Pay for him to get certified.
Anything, do anything, just
But
hire the guy.
business, right? Well, because I guess, because then like you're not beholden to like cost of living increases or your 5-year bump, whatever. Even though like oftentimes those aren't even a real incentive anymore, right? Like how many places have you been where you have to hit 3 years to even talk about that, and then it's 5, 7, 15, whatever, but the amount is 3%. Who gives a shit? Like I'm not going to stay here for that. You've given me no reason for this.
No.
Right?
No.
Oh, if you stay 5 years, you get like $20, and you're like, okay, well, or I'll just go get another job. Like,
yeah. And then similar to you, like, will I take as much money as they will pay me?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll never turn that down as long as it doesn't cost me the things in my personal life I want. I'm not going to travel 80% of the time. Doesn't matter how much money you offer me. But like my goals are not financial. And some like I don't want an expensive car.
No.
That's stupid. What anyone who buys $100,000 car is an idiot in my book.
Sorry.
Like there's no reason for it except to say you have too much money. I drive a 2017 Jetta. It's great. My Jetta
I got
works
a
perfectly
2013
fine.
Prius C. Man, I could park anywhere in the city. Are you kidding?
Yeah,
like
it's awesome.
whatever. But it's also, like, and it's not to say that I don't like nice things. Obviously I do. But for me, they're experiential, right? Like if I'm going to make more money, I want to go with my friends to nicer restaurants. I want to travel. I want to see shit. I want to go to a show. I want to whatever. I don't need $2,000 shoes, right? I want a good pair of shoes that are well made and will last me a certain amount of time, right? Like I don't want, whatever. But like I'm more concerned about my retirement situation and, if I'm one disaster away from bankruptcy because of medical bills.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is my concern more than anything else at this point, right? Like everything else we can work it out, but like, and again, I think people should want to be comfortable and should be comfortable, right? I have no patience for like the nobleness of being on the grind and poverty and like making it work, like, that weird boomer shit where I'm just like, nah, dude, that's wild. Like you hated it.
Also, you bought a house for $17,000.
Yeah. Also, relax. So... Your college was like what, $300? What are we doing? Like,
and you had a pension. So,
but also like you also didn't like the grind when you were doing it, right? Like I come from a family of immigrants. Like they came here literally with nothing, literally bootstrapped, right?
Yeah.
Like all the stuff that they tell you, but they don't want that for their children. Not one of them has ever pulled the like, oh, we shouldn't, forgive student loans, or, oh, I did this, so you need to do it too. They're like, hell no. They're like, oh, our kids need help. Let's help them buy a house. Oh, they want to go to college. Let's pay for it. Like there is none of that weird American shit around like everybody has to struggle because it builds character and nobody wants to work anymore. Yeah, dude.
No one ever did.
Nobody ever did. And also on top of that, like we're not even working for ourselves. It's not sustainability farming, right? It's not our ability. Like, and even then, that shit sucked. Like, but we also have made all the technology in the world to make it easier for us to do the stuff that we want to do. Like, I don't know, draw, whatever pursuits that you may have, right? Whatever weird shit you want to do. Like, I don't know, podcasting, great, whatever. Like, the idea that like, there's something morally wrong with wanting to do less labor in a world that has literally made everything in order for us to do less labor, right? It's crazy because now we're making shit up. We're making things hard for no reason except that if it's not hard, then you're a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's like you see this now with all, all like even like, all this stuff around like the way the jobs are going and all this other stuff, like the way that we even do interviews. Why are you doing a gauntlet of 12 people in one day where they're asking you the exact same questions over and over again? And they're people
Yeah.
that you may not even directly work with. So you get good at interviewing. Okay, great. But that doesn't mean if you're actually good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of time that you're wasting of all of these people, of your own time, the inefficiency of the job search right now, the idea that you're supposed to apply for, like, I don't know, somebody said something insane the other day, like 200 jobs a week. And I was like, no, not going to do it. You can't make me. Or that you're supposed to start cold calling people on LinkedIn and like ask for, 20 minutes of their time so that they can eventually use you as a referral because people don't get jobs outside of the referral process, right? Or that you're always networking, or that you're writing these weird essays on LinkedIn about how much you think about this part of your job, which I am blown away that that is a thing that people do. Who's reading that? Are people reading them? I don't think so. It's great. I mean, I honestly, someone was like, "Oh, you should start writing a weekly, like, thought experiment, like, essay on like different aspects of project management on LinkedIn, so you get more engagement." And I was like, "No, just no. I'm not. I don't care. No, I honestly will go back to making no money or something else. I don't know. Pack my bags, move away. I have no idea. But like, there is nothing in this world that will make me unpaid sit down in my house and write an entire page about why story pointing in agile needs to be thought about a little differently."
Yeah.
No. For a job interview, or not an interview, for an application, I had to cover letter, which what year is it? Why are we doing cover letters? Relax.
Exactly.
No one's reading that. Get the fuck out of here. And, update, put in your resume, put in your LinkedIn, whatever. And then they were like, "Can you give us 200 words about why you want to work in customer service AI?" And I was like, "I will do this, but I got to tell you, I'm lying because I've never once in my entire life said, ooh, you know what I really want to do? Customer service AI. Yes, that's the ticket. A dream of mine. Not go to Tokyo. Fuck that. No, I want to work in customer service AI. What? Like, come on. Like,
It's what you said about like this idea of like the noble pursuit of like a career and working. I do feel like especially anyone younger than us, they see how broken the system is because at least when we were in high school, things were like okay. Like there was a hope that we would get into the workforce and it would be fine. Like yeah, our parents could afford a house or there was enough to go around in a way that there very clearly is not now. And on top of
well, there
that,
is. It's just artificially being held back, right?
exactly. Yeah, well it's being distributed among 12 people as opposed
Right.
to 120 million. So
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, I'm a little bit older than you. So, like, I grew up in the 90s where we were like high on the hog, man. We were doing great. Like, I lived in the Bay Area my whole life. So, like, I saw the first .com boom. Like, people were
yeah.
doing well. And you could do anything. It was this
Mm-hmm.
idea of like, got an idea, make a weird app that looks like you're drinking a beer. That's nothing, but that's something right now. Like,
Yeah.
whatever. And, and it was this idea of like, you can go and do anything. And I think that's why like a lot of us like very differently from younger generations now, which I think in some ways is great for them, in some ways takes away something from them, are
Yeah.
being really deliberate about whether or not they're going to college. If they do go to college, what's it for? What is the actual plan when we get out of there, right? Which kind of sucks because I do think there's something to be said of like people who can go to college and, I'm a literature major, but like
Yeah.
it was valuable to me in other ways, right?
Yeah, it's the
And
experience more so
yeah.
than the knowledge gain.
Yeah, but even just being able to study something I actually loved, as opposed to,
Yeah.
being very different from high school and like, elementary school where it's very much like you don't have a lot of say in that.
Mhm.
I think was helpful in the end, right? But like, but at the same time, I also understand too, like, I wish that I had been sort of coached or trained in a way to think about like legitimately what is the end goal here? What are you trying to get to? And
Yeah.
let's figure out how you need to do that and maybe figure out like a more efficient way to do it, or like do you even have to go to college, like
Yeah.
and I don't think we should pick our careers at 15, but like
No.
I do appreciate that that this is happening to a certain degree, but it is really different from like where we are as a generation because Gen Z makes fun of us for, constantly being depressed and making jokes about depression and being sad and burned out. But it's like, yeah, dude, like,
It's hard out here.
it's hard out here. Like, it's a real different hard from y'all. Like that. I'm so sorry for you growing up with the internet the way that you have, because it couldn't
Yeah.
be me. But, it's a completely different context. But like, it is, we are hitting a weird age. We're all middle-aged all of a sudden, and we don't understand that because it doesn't feel like we are. Because I think a lot of us, because of the timeline of how things work, it took us a while to get going. And so we kind of all feel like we're still waiting for our life to really start. And also because we're having kids later, right? Like that we're just starting to feel like adults, and they're going, no, 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 you're middle-aged now. And you're like, oh, no, what happened? Right. But like, I do think it's changing. And I think that we're all flashing back to graduating college and there not being anywhere for us to work, except now we have a much more inflated lifestyle for a lot of reasons, and it's scarier.
Yeah.
Because we're also getting older and we're worried about aging out,
It's hard out there. It's not getting easier. I'm pessimistic in a lot of things about life, but younger generations is one thing I'm not pessimistic about.
No,
like I see so much positivity and so much inclusion and acceptance. And to be the exact opposite of our generation, I got married young and had kids young. So I'm 34 and I have a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Oh, damn.
And so like even seeing my kids and like the way they view the world and the way they approach things and how accepting they are of things that like to us would have like blown our minds.
Yeah.
Like anything, and you're West Coast. I was raised in the South, like in the absolute Bible Belt. So anything LGBTQA
Oh,
plus
yeah. So that's a whole
was
different.
like to me, like it was just all evil, and they want to turn you evil like them. And like just seeing how openly I can have conversations with my kids about attraction or things like that, just to get where they're at and to help them understand that, hey, no matter where you are, I love you no matter what. It doesn't matter. You don't ever have to feel like you have to hide any of this from me. And for them to be like, yeah, I know. Like, obviously.
Yeah, the joy.
Like, why
that is the bare minimum. What do you mean?
why are you being stupid?
You're like, I'm a good parent. Shit, okay.
So,
right.
But to see things like that of like, no, they're not going to have to, yeah, they'll have things to fight over and get through. But I don't think it's going to be the same social things that we spent so much of our time getting over in the same way, because they think about it more. My 8-year-old, she is obsessed with learning about Martin Luther King right now. Like, because they talked about him at school, and now she's like obsessed and like not understanding for her why anyone would be treated differently just because their skin is different. Like it blows her mind.
Yeah.
And so she wants to understand it as much as she can. And she talks about it a lot. And I'm like, that's great. Like, I love that, because as an 8-year-old, it's not something I ever thought about. It wasn't part of my experience in any way. So even small things like that, seeing changes. But then their views towards work, people that are older than my kids are so unaccepting of companies treating them like shit. Because with the way the gig economy works now, or even content creation, like, well, you'll pay me $12 an hour to bag groceries and you'll treat me like shit, or I can stream and I can drive Uber and I can do this and I can make the same amount of money and work less. Like,
yeah, it's really about, like, I think it is really indicative of like the intense individuality of that, for better or for worse, right? Like, there is a certain amount of loneliness, there's a certain amount of isolation, there is an echo chamber, right? Like, but there is also that pushback of like, this weird power dynamic is over. Like, I don't know what kind of weird shit this is for you, but it's weird and I'm gonna go, right?
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I'm also experiencing it on the negative side too, which is the no, I don't want to. And it's like, okay, well, but then you don't have a job.
Yeah.
But within reason, right? And that is very few and far between. I have only experienced of like maybe like 3 people total. But it is also something that like I've heard from other people is also happening a little bit more, which I get. But that's also one of those things where it's a little bit of naivete. You're young. Like, I mean, I know Gen Z's not that young anymore, but like, whatever, where you'll learn where that line is for yourself very quickly, right?
Yeah.
And you'll still be able to say like, no, I'm not going to work on Saturday, you weirdo. Like, you don't, again, as someone who literally used to work in child welfare, when I transferred to tech and people were asking me to do all kinds of weird shit, I'd be like, first of all, this is not an emergency. An emergency is a kid like dying.
Yeah.
Secondly, like, and you have to put people back into the perspective of like, we don't make anything. that crazy? If we make anything at all, to be completely honest,
Yeah.
and like the board or whatever, or your investors, first of all, this being done on a Saturday, not a Saturday, it's not going to change shit. So like, relax. But also
Mhm.
like you're creating this weird emergency, this like panic, and like we're not working hard enough, and why aren't people producing enough? And what do we do to make
Yeah.
them produce faster? And it's like, but to what end? You're not incentivizing people to do this, but also it's stupid, honestly. Like, and I
Yeah.
think Gen Z realizes that because they're looking at people going, "Why are you doing that?
Hmm.
You don't have to. Nothing,
Yeah.
nothing matters. This is all nothing. Also, the world's on fire. What do you want? Like, you know?
Exactly. They are very much a call everyone on their bullshit generation.
Yeah,
Does that mean sometimes it's overkill? Of course.
sure.
But every generation goes through that. There was
Yeah,
stuff that we're a pain in the ass about that no one will ever understand. But we're like, no, this is just who we are, and it's just how it is.
yeah.
Um, uh, outside of work, what do you like to do? Like tech is stressful. Working in startups is unbelievably stressful. I had a conversation with Jordan Dickerson on the show, and he's primarily worked in logistics in the startup space. And we were talking about like the difference between good stress and bad stress.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's good stress that pushes you to be better. Like, hey, I have to perform because there's a goal to hit. And if we hit this, everybody wins. Like
Right.
that's when that team mentality is actually beneficial. And there's that bad stress of like everybody was down on me. I know nothing's working. I know the company's failing. I'm gonna go home and like lay face down on the floor and cry for a while.
Yeah.
And like and everybody who's worked in startups has felt that as well. So how do you like balance that? What's your decompression when you have those days where it feels so overwhelming and you know like burnout is imminent if you don't unplug and take care of yourself?
You know, I think I really struggled with that for a long time because I
Hmm.
am very hard. I'm very hard on myself in a way that
Hmm.
is not healthy.
Yeah.
I've been
Same,
working on
same.
it though. You know, also like I'll tell you, like last year humbled the shit out of me. I'll tell you what, because like I got laid off in January. I had been waiting for open enrollment to switch my insurance because I needed a surgery.
Hmm.
So got laid off, still had the surgery. Surgery got postponed twice because everybody got COVID. Like, you know, and so it was just like hit after hit after hit
Yeah.
after hit of like shit happening to me that I was like, is this ever gonna get better? Right.
Hmm.
And you hit a wall at some point where you're like, I don't know, this has gotten absurd that it's basically funny now and I don't care and none of this matters. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and then there's a certain amount of like privilege in that, right? Because I knew I wasn't going to be homeless. I knew I had a certain amount of like, you know, financial stability based on like, you know, my savings and things. And I was on unemployment and I have a good family and like, you know, all these things that like,
Yeah.
you know, really allow you to like get a little perspective. But even before that, when I was, you know, at my last company, that like I said, they didn't write anything down. It was incredibly stressful trying to get an entire company on board with like implementing any processes at all, and then
Hmm.
managing that change with a bunch of people who are seeing it as a negative, right?
Yeah.
You're asking me to do more work, you don't trust me, you know, whatever.
Hmm.
At that point, I think it was difficult for me to, you know, really try to balance that stuff. But what sort of started happening is like, you know, once I was there, within my first 3 months, they did one round of layoffs.
Hmm.
Survived it because I just got hired, but you know. And I think at that point I kind of turned a corner a little bit where I was like, I can walk away from this whenever I want to at this point.
Yeah.
And I need to just remember that because at some point, you know, previously it had been like the sky's falling, I'm going to get fired. That's the worst thing that can possibly happen.
Yeah.
You know, I'm killing myself to get some recognition that I'm not a piece of shit. But like, you know, if you're already in a space where like the culture has turned toxic, which happens very often, especially when you're about to IPO or something very large is about to happen, right? It becomes
Yeah.
this weird panic around nobody's good enough anymore.
Yep.
And nobody's trying hard enough and no one's doing what I need them to do, right?
Yeah.
Because it's all rolling downhill and it has nothing to, it's not based in reality, right?
Yeah.
I think at that, you know, once like I had really thought about like how easy it is to just, we don't want you anymore. We don't need you
Hmm.
anymore. We're not even going to help you transition out of this. We're not going to give you
Yeah.
any, you know, support really. um it is a lot easier at that point because I can just be like, if this gets too stupid, like I'm out, and like I need to just know that about myself. I know I can get
Hmm.
another job. And I think it's easier too when you're like further along in your career and you have more experience, because if
Yeah.
you're just starting out there is much more panic there. But like at this point I've been doing this shit for 15 years, man. Like I know what I'm doing,
Yeah.
right? And so like if this has gotten to a point where like we can't figure out a way to not stress each other out in this way. And especially too, I think like if you start calling it out and it's not a temporary thing, it's not like there's this weird one push for like you said, like a real goal. It just is the way it works, or it's just turned that way for whatever reason, because there's panic, because you're not profitable, because whatever.
Yep.
I do think now, like, I have no more loyalty to these people. I don't. I used to. I really did used to want to like find a place that I wanted to work for, stay for 5 years, if not longer, stay forever. Shit, whatever. I don't feel that way anymore.
Yeah.
Right now, it's just like, this is good enough. This is good enough, because now I have my real life. I want to spend time with my friends. I want to make sure that I'm, spending time with, my mom who's 75. Like, I for a long time was a jazzercise instructor on the side. I taught 4 days a week. I did my aerobics with my ladies. It was great. I'm actually, after this, I'm applying for a part-time job at a wine bar that's mostly weekends, so that if I do get another job, I will keep it. I used to work at a wine bar before the pandemic on the weekends as a fun thing that I like to do, because I like people. I'm very extroverted, and different things. It's like one of the biggest things I think is like making sure that you are taking care of your body, like to a certain extent. That does not mean I'm a pinnacle of health. I drink, I do all kinds of stuff, but for me, it's really about like making sure that I have like nourishing food at home that like feels good to make. I like to cook, right? Like it feels good to make, feels good to eat. Like, you're not just like, constant. For me, like I obviously will use like the convenience of like a Trader Joe's or something, but like not every day, right? Like trying to make sure I'm taking time to, at least even on the weekend, if it's to slow down and like make a soup that takes 3 hours for fun, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then otherwise I'm in a city. I go do all kinds of cultural shit here, because like that's why I'm here. That's why I put up with how expensive it is to live here. Because like I do want to go do all these things, right? I want to go to a drag show. I want to go see a punk band. I want to go try a type of food I've never heard of before, like. So, I think a lot of it for me now is just coming to that point in my life and in my career where I'm less afraid of being fired. I'm not afraid of being fired anymore, to be totally honest. I've had an entire year of unemployment. I still don't know what's going on. And I, throughout my 20s, really thought that would be the worst thing that could possibly happen to me. And it's not,
Yeah. It's scary until it happens. And then you're like, all right, roll with the punches and figure out the next step. When the first time I got laid off, it felt world ending.
Yeah.
Like sitting down for that meeting, kind of knowing it was coming because there had been other rounds, and like just sick to your stomach. Like, all right, what am I gonna do? I have to go home and I have to tell my wife, like all this stuff. Like, and it feels embarrassing because it feels like a failure when it happens, because you're like, oh, I didn't make it. Like, we didn't make the company what I thought it was going to be, and this is somehow my fault. But it's not. It's just part of it. You're a piece this big in a giant system, and even if you did show up and just not do a fucking thing all day long, if that wrecks a whole company, the company was going to fail no matter what. So it's not your fault. But yeah, that first time is terrifying, and then it happens. You're like, oh, it's not scary, and I just assume it will happen again. Yeah. So like I'm already mentally prepared for it. It is almost an inevitability, and that's okay. Like it's not the end of the world. It just is.
I think too, after it happens, you also start preparing for it every time now, right? So it is there is a certain amount of like financial preparedness that you also start doing, right? Like, okay, let me make sure I have like a safety net that'll get me through at least a year, like, whatever. And for some people that's obviously not possible, but I do think that like however that works out for you, after that happens that first time, you do start thinking that way later. Like you're like, okay, let me make sure like I'm cool, like, for now, just in case tomorrow they go, surprise, we're shutting the company down.
Yeah. We sold the company and none of you work here anymore. So
right. Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, especially like that's the other thing too. It may have nothing to do with perform. I mean, it oftentimes does, but it may also have nothing to do with even just like the actual budget of the company. It could just be a merger. It could be anything, right? Like, you could work for Cruise and all of a sudden your car hit a bunch of people and the California said, y'all can't operate here no more. Like, and then what are you gonna do, right? Like, so, and it's not because you did anything wrong. I mean, well, they did, but you as the individual did not do anything wrong. And so you just don't know anymore. Again, there isn't that loyalty. There isn't that idea of longevity. There isn't, and to your point about the gig economy, right? Like, even there now, if you were to get laid off and you didn't have that safety net, right?
Mm-hmm.
You probably could do something in the gig economy, right? You could
Yeah.
go on Fiverr, you could DoorDash, you could Uber, you could do whatever. Like, and that is just how, how much you wanted,
Yeah.
work to a certain degree. I don't like saying it like that, but like, you know, there
Mm-hmm.
are options there that we didn't really have in the same way before, I feel like.
Yeah.
So, I think it's, which probably lends to this too. I don't know, chicken egg, but like,
Mm-hmm.
I just think that that is such a big thing now that I think we're all losing our fear of
Yeah.
being fired, being laid off, um, which we
Yeah.
didn't used to have. It used to be world ending. It used to feel like the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think and I do think that people are getting less judgmental about it,
Yeah.
like I was really embarrassed when I got laid off because I'd only been there for a year and some change, but like they
Mm-hmm.
laid off my entire department. It wasn't just me.
Yeah.
But there was a really big difference between people who are used to this being like, yeah, whatever, it happens, and people like, especially older people, being like, well, what did you do wrong?
Exactly.
And I was like, I didn't do shit wrong. What do you mean? They like didn't make any money for like the last 5 years. Like,
Yeah.
I don't make the thing. Like, so I'm gone. That's what's up. Like,
Yeah, it's weird. There is this view where laid off and fired are viewed as the same thing to certain
right.
generations.
Definitely not the same.
They're like, no, it's not. I didn't come into work hammered and get fired because I pissed on my computer. Like,
Right.
that's not what happened here.
Also, like when they closed the steel mill and Brampy had no job, did he get fired? Like, we know the difference.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
just, but I think it's this again. It's this weird thing around like younger generations. Y'all don't want to work, or like, or like this misunderstanding of what our jobs are. And so it feels like we have all these like nothing jobs that aren't real jobs, right? Like, how many people's parents, when they were working from home, did not understand the concept of this to the point where they would just like call you in the middle of the day and be like, "What are you doing?" You're like, "I'm working."
Yeah.
But you're home. Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Where I work.
Yes, where I work, because I tippy typey on a computer. Like, that's what I do. Like, my job is computer. Like,
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's just such a weird, like, there is this weird disconnect about like what work actually is right now, like what we're doing, what it means, and then the shame around it, right? Like, well, I don't understand why you can't afford your house. You make so much money. I'm like, but it doesn't have the buying power that it used to have, right? Like,
Exactly.
also, them houses are $4 million. What do you mean? So it's just it is this really weird thing around like, especially for me, I have a large extended family, and having the embarrassment of having to be like, yes, I'm still unemployed a year later, right? And people are like, oh my God. And again, people who are not in it have said things like, well, do you have a shitty resume? Like, what are you doing wrong? Right? Like, my mom looked at my resume and she hired a resume coach for me, which was nice. Like, thank you. I'll take it. It's expensive. Like, but it was because she couldn't understand it. And I was like, no resume coach in the world is going to have you understand what this is.
Yeah, exactly.
You literally don't understand my job is the problem, right? It's not that I wrote it badly, right? It was fine. It wasn't the best resume in the world, but it's definitely a lot better now because I hired a professional. But like, you throwing money at this did not actually fix the problem, which is you have no idea what I do. And it doesn't.
It used to be you could just show up and be like, I'm looking for a job. And then you would talk to the owner of the company, and then you would have a job, and you would be there for 40 years.
Like, I think my mom's only worked like 3 places in her whole life. Right? And she retired at 71 or something.
Yeah. So, like, that used to be the norm.
Yeah.
It would be like, well, yeah, I graduated college, and then the next week I started a job. And then I stayed there.
And then a year I got promoted, and then I got a raise, and then I got promoted again. And anyway, now I'm a VP of my region, and oh, you know what? Time for retirement. Oh, also I have a pension. Like, and it just is such a different landscape, right? It's just such a different way of doing things. It's people who are like, why are you always changing jobs? And I was like, I've changed jobs once in the last 5 years. That's actually weird. Like, I stay places too long because I hate doing the job search. So I'll stay somewhere toxic for a while because I'm like, I just don't want to do the other part of it, And it's not a good idea, but like, it is something I again, working on, like getting the fuck out when I start realizing things are changing. Because also I find, especially like, you're talking about being in startups, like I try to avoid like true startups because it's
Yeah,
not that.
it's
I
rough.
really enjoy having an HR department, even though, you know, it could be annoying. But I find myself often in these like mid-level companies because I do like working for a company that's like so big that you're lost in the sauce, but like not so small that like you're working, you know, 100 hours a week because your boss is crazy. Um,
Or you have to worry about if your paycheck will clear.
yeah, right. Like, are we getting paid? I don't know. But you know, but in that, I find myself very often either right before they get bought by a larger company, or right as they're trying to like kind of grow up out of their startup, but they waited too long to really like think
Yeah.
about how to do that, and now we're like catching up to like the size of what's happening, or right before an IPO. And I noticed in those, there's always a moment where I realize, okay, it's going toxic. I should get out of here, right? And it's
Yep.
always around the same time. And like sometimes I'll try to stick it out for a little while. I'm learning to like, I think in my next position I will just bounce, like, because at this point I haven't had a real job in a year. Like I know I'll be okay to a certain extent. I can float for a little longer, right? Especially if, you know, 6 months I've done some stuff, and you know, or even
Yeah.
like start picking up contract work, hopefully. I don't know. But I think it's weird that it always almost happens, and it's also one of those things that I think is somewhat natural. There's a certain amount of turnover where it does force that introspection of like, why did
Yeah.
everyone just leave right now?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
What's happening? What am I not seeing? Yeah.
and so it might just be like a natural cycle of it.
Hmm.
But again, that is something that wasn't happening before. Like banks were not turning over like their entire staff
Yeah.
right before they opened a new branch.
Hmm.
You know, necessarily, maybe not necessarily, but you know what I mean. Like
Yep.
it just isn't, it's not, I think that we haven't, I don't know, we as a society haven't like thought about this enough to figure out like what's going on here, and like,
Hmm.
is there something we should shift? Is this just how it is? What does that mean? Like,
Hmm.
you know, I just think it's one of those things where we're all having these like anecdotal conversations, or we're all experiencing in these different ways, but there's no like, or at least I mean there probably is, but like I don't know about it as like a really big topic that people are like talking about in like regular spaces.
Yeah. No, it feels like small pockets of people having the same exact conversation. And it
Yeah.
hasn't unified into one thing yet. It hasn't become like a national conversation about here's what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
How do we fix this? How do we change this? Clearly it's broken. Um, so what's next? What are next steps?
Right. Or the conversations are just in memes, right? It's all
Hmm.
just jokes about it, right? Like I have a friend
Yeah.
who hit 15 years at her company a couple days ago, which is unheard of, right? That's crazy.
Hmm.
But it's a video game company, so it's more normal there, right?
Yeah.
But video games are so weird because they're pre sort of the tech industry, so they still don't pay as well, which is insane. And then but they still have some of the toxicity. Like it's really weird, right?
Yeah.
You know, she's there for 15 years. 15 years is a long fucking time to be somewhere,
Hmm.
right?
Oh yeah.
Especially these days. I mean, she's my age, right? She's like the only place she's ever worked after college, right? For the most
Hmm.
part. And they gave her a ring, but the ring cost $4,000 to make. Give her the $4,000.
Exactly.
Like we were joking about it because she sent us a picture on our Discord, and she was like, "So this is what I got for 15." Because they get all kinds of bullshit. They get like, you know, swords and axes and all kinds of nonsense.
Yeah.
Again, here you throw this out, but you also it's serialized, so you can't sell it, right? They have serial numbers on them, so they know if you did. So you can't even sell it to like some mega collector or something, you know. So they have all this like stuff in their house, but you know,
It's
but
so
they're
funny.
fans of the product, obviously. Like you know, that's why they got into it to begin with. But you know, now at this age, you know, she's got her mom living with her going through chemo. She's got a mortgage payment to pay. You
Hmm.
know, they were thinking about maybe having kids, and it's like, here we spent $4,000 to make this random piece of jewelry that you're never going to wear because it's hideous and looks like a class ring. And it's like I told her, I was like, honestly, Shannon, at this point, I'd rather have the pizza party. At
Yeah.
least you can eat it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just at some point, this isn't, what is this? You know?
That's so weird. That's so weird. I would be furious.
Oh, because, but we talk about it online all the time. Like,
Hmm.
no, I don't want your random pizza party. I want the money. I don't
Yeah.
want, you know, this water bottle. I want the money. Like, I
Yep.
don't, stop giving me random garbage and telling me that you're taking care of me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't need you to pay for my gym membership. I need you to pay me enough money that it's not weird if I have a gym membership.
Exactly.
Right? Like, it's also none of your damn business. Like, stop incentivizing this weird stuff. You know, I don't want to go to Raging Waters with you. Please don't make me do that, right? It's like, I don't want to do I don't want to. Like, no, thank you. Like, if I want to go do those things, I want to go do it with the people I like. I don't want to go do it with my manager and like my director. Like, that's weird. No thanks. Like, you know, I don't want to do karaoke with you guys. Honestly, it's weird. Like, and so I think, you know, but I think there isn't a larger conversation around like, we no longer want the gold watch, right?
Exactly.
We just want to be compensated, because at this point, everything's too, grapefruits are $3 here. Like, you know, like, what do you mean? Like, you know, I mean, you could obviously get a cheaper one, but I just saw that the other day and I cried in the supermarket because I really wanted a grapefruit, but I was like, I can't justify that at all. Like, a little bit like I have to find someone to buy me a grapefruit right now, because like, I mean, obviously I went somewhere else and got a cheaper one, but like, I've never seen that before. I was like, what? Like, you know, and so it's like, at this point, like, everything is so expensive, and like, we are, you know, we're at an age where we're getting more health screenings, we are having more dental issues, like, we're, you know, all of these larger things are happening, and so you giving me a tchotchke does not make me feel good.
No.
And it certainly makes me start thinking about, what have I done for the last 15 years? Should I start thinking about changing that? Right.
Yeah.
And they're hoping that in this economy you're not going to, but like,
doesn't mean we won't try.
Yeah.
Last thing before we wrap up, what advice, as someone who has been in the tech space, you know, for a while now, what advice do you have for a woman, and specifically women of color, trying to get into it, who are passionate about it and do care about it, or similar, they see that money and they know, hey, the life I want can be afforded if I pursue this route. What advice do you have for them, and what are some of the pitfalls that you have had to learn the hard way, that you could be like, hey, watch out for this?
Yeah, I think, you know, this is something that you know, we've all dealt with like our entire lives too. It's like, you know, it's like, know your audience, like, know where you're going into, what your limit is, what your boundaries are, right? Look for companies that are more about like cultural fit than like necessarily the job, because like, again, like you said, you can learn everything, and like most jobs, you're gonna have to train anyway. You got to onboard anyway. Everyone does something a little bit differently. You know, it is what it is. Like, the projects are all different. Like, none of that really matters that much. You know, what matters is if like you know, do a little research, like, try to see, like, I mean, Glassdoor can be good. It can also be difficult, because like you said, they're either farming or you're pissed and you're writing something super negative, right? So like, try to figure out, like, read between the lines what that is, I think was helpful. You know, look at their LinkedIn, look at what they're posting, look at what people associated with them are posting, you know, what it sounds like they're trying to do. You know, do they have a well fleshed out website in their like about me section? Do they have corporate values that are listed? Like, do they actually spell out, here are our 6 values, here's what they are, here's what they mean to us? It doesn't mean they're always going to uphold them, but it means that they at least are thinking about it to a certain extent, that they want it to be true, which is kind of, you know, we usually don't give rewards for intentions, but also like, I mean, a lot of these people don't. So like, you know, I think that's helpful. I think that like, but there also just has to be a level of like, I'm going to have to eat some shit. It sucks. We live in a world where this is true, but we know that already. We do it in our regular lives all the time, right? So it's just, you know, it depends on what you need, but like, also like, don't be afraid to leave. You know, if all of a sudden you realize you're the only person not getting a raise, but everybody else is, like, which has happened to like a lot of my friends, fuck out of there. Because oftentimes, like, you probably are doing a lot better job than other people are, because you've had to work harder for it. So like, you know, if Joe Blow over here, who like, you know, went to a boot camp, is getting, you know, $5,000 more than you, and not only that, you're also like actually kind of acting as like the project manager on the thing, because maybe they just assumed you would, or whatever, like, just leave. Like, you don't have to stay. They don't, again, there's no loyalty. And, you know, if this keeps happening, it does trigger a conversation at these companies of, why can't we retain women and Black people or people of color? Like, we had a very serious conversation about that at one of my last companies, because what we noticed is that women and people of color always dropped off and like left the company before they made manager. because they couldn't make manager.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden everyone went, oh shit. Like, you know, because it was like right there was data to back it up. And they went, oh, we have a real problem here. Okay. You know, like, why is that? Why aren't we promoting people? Why is this happening? Why are they leaving in order to get better careers? You know?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of that there. I also just think that, like, you know, it is just rough. It's a rough industry. You got to kind of have a little bit of a thick skin. I also will say your coworkers are not necessarily your friends. I know that sounds so horrible, but I just mean that, like, it's okay to play things a little bit close to the chest. They don't need to know everything about you know? And like, I'm very guilty of this. Like, I love making friends. I assume everyone is cool. Everyone's not cool. They're not. I just, you know, I'm naive as hell. Like, I've gotten super screwed over by like trusting the wrong people.
Yeah.
You know, and so I just think like it's a hard lesson to learn, but like I do think that, like, you know, be very careful about like how you are talking about certain things or what you're saying about certain things, you know, or like who's asking and like why are they asking, and like, you know, it's not that you can't be friends with, I'm friends with a hell of people I used to work with, but like, I mean, there's no better friends than people you used to work with because like they were in it with you, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, at the same time, like, you have to be like very in a self-preservation mode that it can be kind of shitty, but like, you know, and I'm not saying ever be paranoid or anything, you know, within reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think
trust your senses when it comes to those people.
Yeah, I really do believe in trusting your gut. Like, I really do. I think that especially like in situations where I've been like pulled into things because I'm a woman, because I'm Black, like, Miriam, what's your perspective on this? Or like, you know, oh, can you help us with this? Or da 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 da. There have been times where I've just been like, no, this feels weird. And I feel like if this goes sideways, somehow I'm a scapegoat. So I'm going to not do that.
Yeah.
Like, right. Where it's like, this doesn't feel like it's coming from the right place. Or it feels like there's some kind of gotcha in here somewhere, you know? You know, so like being a little, you know, trusting your gut a little bit, I think is a big one. And I also think like you have to advocate way more for yourself. They're not going to give you a raise because they see you're doing a good job. They're not going to promote you because they see that like you're ready for more challenges. You have to constantly ask, and you have to constantly like one thing I really regret not doing is really pushing for professional development. Like, because what would happen is we have these budgets for it, right? Like you have $2,000 a year for professional development, right? And then there's no guidance around it. And so like I learned everything I learned on the job. I didn't like go get my PMP. I didn't, you know, I didn't do like, I got certified and shit, but like through work, right? But at a certain point, you know, there wasn't more like, oh, it's very clear that you get this certification now, right?
Yeah.
And I really regret that I didn't push harder for this, because what would happen is I'd be in a one-on-one with like my manager or my director or something. And I'd say, hey, I haven't used my budget yet. Like, if you like, as someone who's working with me, as my like, you know, superior, or I don't like that word, but what do you think I could work on to like get, you know, better at what I'm doing, or where do you see some gaps or some places? And they would just be like, I don't know. And it's like, okay, but that doesn't help me because I don't know. And like, you're the one who's going to decide whether or not I get promoted eventually. So like, there's some rubric for this, right? So like, what do I need to hit? So like, I feel like you really got to kind of drill down and really push back on like, no, you need to manage me because you are my manager. Right. And it's not just making sure I'm doing my job. You should also be in charge of my professional development. And I need you to work with me to do that. And if you can't answer that question, you need to figure out someone who can answer that question. Right. And really, whether it's outside of the company, inside the company, whether it's you doing some work with your, you know, HR, like learning and development people, and coming back and saying, listen, I talked to them, they talked to this, whatever it is. Right. I think that is something I really wish that I had hammered back on a lot more, as opposed to just going, okay, well, I guess I'm doing an okay job, right?
Exactly.
No
feedback is good feedback, right?
Right. Well, and if I say to you, what can I work on? And you go, I don't know, nothing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, then I'm going to assume that like I'm doing great. And then when I'm not being considered, then it creates this weird problem because it's unclear, right?
Exactly.
So I do think like one of the biggest things like I wish I had done more in my career and like plan to do, you know, moving forward, is really kind of hammering back that you don't only get to do the managing of like my work, like you have to also help me. Like, it is part of your job to help develop me. And like, I need you to do that. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that like that is one of the biggest things that I wish, especially women and people of color would do, because honestly, a lot of the dudes I worked with would do it on their own. They would just come and be like, "Hey, my buddy at another company told me about this conference. Can I go to it?" And they'd be like, "Sure." But also, it was easier. Like when we had a Black Tech conference here in Oakland, or we do every year. I wanted to go. I had to write an essay to explain why I should go. And then I had to write a report when I got back about everything I learned and how we can leverage that for the company in the future. Right. So like there's also going to be that. And so like I do
Yeah.
like so it's not enough to say like, oh well, if those people can go out and find their opportunities, why can't you go out and find your opportunities? And it's like, well, you can, you always can. But also in terms of like your actual career that you're actually in, the people who you work with should be able to tell you that.
Exactly.
And be like really pushing you to do it. Right. So yeah, I think that's a kind of thing.
It's their job to help guide you. That's the point.
But I think we lose that quite a bit in management, because one thing I always talk about around management too is that we have to stop using people management as a reward. It is a very specific skill set that a lot of people don't have, and we don't do anything to set them up for success. There's no training, there's no boot camp before you do it, right? You hit a certain part in your career, and the next step is you need to people manage because that is your next promotion. And that's horrible because you end up with a ton of managers who don't have the skill set, don't want to do it, don't like doing it, are not good at it. And all these people end up with these shitty managers, you know? And it's like, it's just a completely different thing that you have to want to do and have the ability to do. And it's a very different skill set, you know?
Absolutely.
I wish we could divorce those two things so much, because I've had people who have been promoted to a people, you know, and then be forced to people manage and ask to be demoted. They're like, I'll go back to my base pay. I don't care. I don't want to do this anymore. Or they'll leave and they'll go back to being an IC somewhere else, right? It's like we could have retained them. They had a lot of institutional knowledge, but the only way up was this way. And that's not what they wanted to do, you know? And so, you know, that's one thing I really, you know, I really wish we would change that in all.
Yeah. Moving up isn't always the goal. Sometimes people are just content where they're at. I don't care if my job title ever changes. It means nothing to me. Who cares?
I mean,
I'm
it only matters
doing the thing I'm doing.
Right. It only matters if you need a better title to get more money in another job when you go look for another job, right? Like, like I pushed really hard to get senior put in my title when I went to my last company, not because it meant anything. It didn't. There's no one under me. I don't manage anybody. But because now, as I'm looking for jobs, I can ask for the highest rate of salary. I can ask for that top level, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise I wouldn't be able to.
All right. This was a great conversation. I really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's fun.
It's so funny when like you just like talk to someone on Discord. You're like, all right, let's have a 2-hour conversation about work now.
Well, and it's also one of those things where it's like, I'm not in a lot of contexts where I'm going to spend this time talking about it like philosophically like this. You know what I mean?
Like, which is for me the fun part. Like I love thinking about this stuff, and I feel like more people, hopefully, are looking for content like this because so many of us are thinking about it. Right? We are so disillusioned as to what it means to even have a career at this point. So the same way I want to talk to people about religion because I find religion fascinating from just like the purely psychological standpoint. I want to know psychologically, why do you think this? Why do you believe this? And for me, work conversations are the same, of like why people think what they think about work, or why they are drawn to the careers they're drawn to, or why people stay in insane industries like we do in tech and marketing, when from the outset, it seems like, oh, that must be a fucking horrible thing to do with your life. And you're like, no, but the rewards are also good. There are still good rewards in it. So I love these types of conversations. And it was good just to meet a new person. So
no, totally. Like I said, like I'm very talkative. I like meeting new people. Like, you know.
Well, we will I'll check in again once you have a job, and we can talk about what that process was like. I've had a few conversations with people who have been laid off, Some of them trying to stay in the same industry, and some were like, all right, this is my chance to pivot. Like, I'm going to start over. I'm going to do
Yeah.
something new.
Yeah, thought
So-
about it, but I just, didn't. There's nothing that I'm like, oh, I wish I was doing this thing. So there was no path of like, okay, let's take this time and like do this thing, So it's like, I don't know, maybe one day.
And if not, that's fine too,
Yeah,
because none of it really matters. As long as you're getting that money, who cares?
I know. Please, Dave. I just want to help your guy.
I feel you. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.